Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Harry Spikes. I want to thank you for joining today's hearing for the Baltimore Commission for Historic Architectural Preservation. I am the chairman of this amazing committee, and as of right now, I'd like for everyone to introduce themselves from my left.
Lauren Chiswick, Executive Director.
Councilman Jermaine Jones, committee member.
Nicole Battle, I'm representing nonprofit developers.
Ann Powell, representing the Greater Baltimore Committee.
Catherine Good, Commissioner.
Peter Morrill, Commissioner.
Cabral Land, Commissioner.
Myra Mendeleev, Commissioner.
Sarah Langmead, Commissioner.
Tamara Woods, Commissioner representing DHCD.
CHAP staff.
Anthony Stewart, CHAP staff.
Rachel Donaldson's CHAP staff.
Eddie Leon, CHAP staff.
Tyreek Charlouse, CHAP staff.
Marion Gleaves, CHAP staff.
Great, thank you. I call this meeting to order on June 9th, 2026, time 1:02 p.m. The CHAP mission is to enhance and promote the culture and economy of Baltimore through the preservation of buildings, structures, sites, and neighborhoods that have aesthetic, historic, or architectural value. The goal of CHAP include preserving historical architecture and monuments, reclaiming broken neighborhoods, preventing demolition by neglect, and integrating our city's past into its future. I want to share with you a few housekeeping items. You are allowed to keep your cell phone on. Just put it on vibrate or silent. If you do receive a call, please feel free to take it outside. If you all have to talk amongst each other, please feel free to take those conversations outside because, as you can tell, these mics can pick up voices. Also, we have a couple of items today. For those of you who have signed up to speak on the items, we will call you up. For those of you who have not, please feel free to reach out to one of the CHAP staff to have your name placed on one of the items. A couple of just ground rules. We usually give people 3 minutes to speak. At 2 minutes and 30 seconds, I will do this. If I do this, that means you have 30 seconds left. If you go past 30 seconds, I will use the gavel. Very seldom do I use the gavel on folks speaking. Now, there are some people who are on this agenda who are the applicants. They, when they speak, have more than 2 minutes to speak because they are on application. But for public testimony, you have 3 minutes to speak. I would like to make a motion to waive the reading of the minutes.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the minutes.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Due process and review procedures. CHAP reviews applications in conjunction with the building permit process of the permit section of the Department of Housing and Community Development. If a building permit application is filed prior to historic design review, the application is placed on hold pending completion of the CHAP's review process. The review process is completed by issuing authorization to proceed. The historic design review process is in addition to other applicable laws and regulations and does not diminish the force of urban renewal plans, building codes, zoning codes, etc. It is the applicant's responsibility to comply with all applicable laws, regulations, and codes. Proposed projects are reviewed prior to issuing a building permit. Applicants must comply with the Baltimore City Historic Preservation Design guidelines in planning and executing their projects. Design review considers the proposed work taking into consideration the historical and architectural character of the structure and of the immediate area. Applicants will need to clearly explain why their project complies with the design. Minor projects. In order to expedite the application process, the Commission has delegated review authority to the Executive Director for cases involving minor work. Minor projects must not significantly change the overall appearance or remove the significant undamaged historic fabric. All minor work must clearly meet the design guidelines. Major projects. Major projects may change the overall character, appearance, and integrity of the structure. Substantial building alterations, demolitions, additions, and new construction are considered major projects and are reviewed at a public hearing. Interested parties should request a pre-development meeting in the planning department to begin the review process. An electronic version of all materials must be submitted to the CHAP staff at least 25 calendar days prior to the public hearing date. If the application is complete, The project shall be scheduled for a public hearing. CHAP hearings. At the public hearing, CHAP staff presents recommendations to the commission regarding the project. Following the staff presentation, the applicant may make a presentation to the commission. Interested parties, including neighborhood associations, have the opportunity to provide their public testimony. Following the testimony, the commission renders a decision on the application at the public hearing. Persons aggrieved by the decision of the commission may seek judicial and appellate review in accordance with the Baltimore City Code. After an authorization to proceed is issued, the applicant may obtain a building permit. The commission's process is impartial, and staff's comments are evidence that assist the commission in rendering decision. I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the final agenda. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Let us begin. First on our agenda is 2700 Madison Avenue, Druid Hill Park, city-owned property. The request, concept review, Druid Lake Landscape Design. The applicant is the Baltimore City Recreation and Parks. And our staff is our very own Lauren.
Just note, Commission, I'll recuse myself from this project.
So noted. Thank you, sir.
And I will come get you when we're done. Thank you, Commission. It's been a while since I've been up here. Today, I have to present for you, can I have the clicker? Oh, I have it in my hand. Guys. All right, start over. All right, I'm here to present for you the concept review for Druid Lake Landscape Design. Applicant is Baltimore City Recreation and Parks, and I, Lauren Chisholm, staff for this item. First, just want to talk about the site conditions. So this is an aerial view showing Druid Lake within Druid Hill Park, just north of Reservoir Hill. Here's a closer image. It's an enormous landscape. It's huge. And I just want to say a few things. The National Register nomination for Druid Hill Park really does a great job sort of providing an overview of the history and significance of Druid Lake in particular.
This meeting is being transcribed and summarized.
In the park. Complementing the park's landscape design and architecture are its water resources. And it's really fascinating that the engineering that was done was employed to adapt the site's abundant springs into fountains and to channel water from various sources into large reservoirs. And in fact, the history of the Park Commission and the Water Board are inextricably linked, and the parks cannot be fully understood without recognizing their crucial role in hosting most of the city's early reservoirs and being the repositories of good drinking water. Druid Hill Park had a number of spring heads that provided fresh water. That was such an important resource, potable water, in the city. And 3 reservoirs were built within the park grounds prior to 1873, and the largest of which still exists, and that's Druid Lake, completed in 1871. And you can see in this image, it shows sort of that the Druid Lake was in a sort of a stream, a really large, stream channel. And this is a 1870 map as well, showing, and you can see that even after the lake was built, there were spring heads that were feeding it. And in fact, some of those spring heads are still active and extant. You can see cattails on the side of East Drive because they're still active water sources there. And then these are just a few photos showing how the lake was part of active recreation for the park. And it was also the first major earth-filled dam in the United States, and it was registered as a National Water Landmark in 1973 by the Waterworks Association. So a little bit of background on this project. The reason why we're here today is because Druid Hill Park is a historic city-owned property. There are 12 structures in the park that are designated as Baltimore City landmarks, but the lake and the surrounding features do not have a local designation. However, the entire park is listed in the National Register of Historic Places, so of course it will go through federal and or state review processes for federally or state funded or permitted projects. At the May and July 2015 CHAP hearings, before any of the commissioners were serving on the commission, the commission reviewed significant changes to Druid Lake to be undertaken by the Department of Public Works to upgrade their drinking water facilities to meet with federal safety standards. And so the commission, again, reviewed this in an advisory capacity. And these are, again, some of the general proposals of what they were showing would happen to the areas on top of the tanks. What they did was instead of having the potable drinking water be accessible in the open air reservoir, they built large tanks in the reservoir and then covered it with soil to allow for the treated drinking water to be protected to meet those federal requirements. And staff and the commission did advise, this is not working. Okay. They did advise, recommend approval for this project. It was, a matter of safety and security of the drinking water. And, the idea was always that this project would then need to come back to the commission for reconsideration. One aspect of the proposal that was recommended by the commission and had been proposed by DPW was later revised. I'm just going to talk through it, and there we go. There were low stone walls surrounding the western edge of the lake that were originally proposed for retention and reuse as seating walls around the new terrain. However, during the course of the construction project, the walls were removed and large boulders were installed to mark the boundary of the new park space on top of the treated water tanks. And then regardless, though, the stones from the walls and the metal fencing that top those walls have been retained for reuse. They're just simply not being reused in this location. Yeah, I think I might just have to say slide.
It keeps freezing.
Okay. It has, for the folks in the audience, it has been many months since we have had multiple hearing items, just for any number of reasons. So I think we're taxing the system. It's not used to working this hard.
Yeah, this is Google thing. I can.
Yeah, let's just do it that way. Okay, let's just do it that way. Yep. And so you can see here that this was what the lake looked like in 2015 prior to the start of this large DPW project. Next slide. Oh, we're going to have to zoom out a little bit. This is the project in progress in 2020. And again, just the scale of this is really just phenomenal. It was impossible to get a picture showing the entirety of the work because it's just so huge. That's 12 to 15 acres that are being worked on right there. And next slide. This is what it looks like today with it covered. With the tank project now complete, the lake no longer holds treated drinking water and is no longer needed by DPW. So Druid Lake and the newly created land above the tanks are being transferred to BCRP for stewardship and for programming. And we're just going to pause. I think we're not going to be able to show full screen. I think we're just going to have to zoom out enough that we can see. Yep. Next slide. Okay. And these are just some aerial photos showing the view of the newly created land at the edge of the lake, a view from the south and from the north. Next slide. And that's a view from the west. And next slide. In 2021, BCRP undertook a months-long public vision plan process for this portion of the park, which included 3 virtual public meetings. Remember, we were still in COVID, an open house, and meetings with multiple stakeholders. And the input from this outreach informed the landscape design and proposed programming. Next slide, please. These are just some of the results from the vision plan community engagement. Next slide, please. And, through that, the design team, Unknown Studio, developed some vision plan principles. Next slide, please. And this is sort of their vision plan, sort of framing the idea, the framework guiding the current design development. So this was 2021, and the plans are now at 50%. Next slide, please. There's also been ongoing public engagement and coordination. Since that 2021 major outreach, there have been other additional engagement processes, public meetings, surveys, and participation with the public regarding this major project. Next slide. Next slide. BCRP is proposing a landscape rehabilitation project on and immediately surrounding Druid Lake, and retained the landscape design firm Unknown Studio as the primary firm to lead this effort. Next slide. The project is divided into 2 phases. Phase 1 delivers, I'm quoting the team, delivers the core park landscape, including circulation, shoreline, stream valley, planting, and major public spaces. Next slide. And the second phase, and then you can see, again, the proposal. Next slide. And the second phase delivers 2 structural aspects, namely a boathouse and a pedestrian bridge. Next slide, please. And then this is just sort of an image of the full build-out showing all phases. We're going to walk through the phases, the different parts of phase 1. Next slide. The landscape design presented to the commission show how the plans will activate the new parkland atop the water tanks, construct new pedestrian paths to increase connectivity to the waterfront, and a new entry point from the park to Druid Park Lake Drive. Next slide. There will be extensive plantings of trees, shrubs, and plants, and the project also has thoughtful limits of disturbance to retain existing mature trees. Next slide. And the project also accounts for stormwater management in its design. Next slide. And again, this shows some of the increased access and connectivity in terms of accessibility and connection. Next slide. This is a site walkthrough slide that will show sort of the 4 different areas of focus. And we're going to start with the Cove and Island area. So you can see that the Cove and Islands is located on the northern shore of the lake. This is existing conditions. Next slide. And you can see the proposal. So it will include, additional connectivity, promenade, a boat plaza, a swimming area, and a large island and some smaller islands in that space to sort of create a cove for the swimming and boat launches. Next slide. And you can see here just some of the programming shown for that, showing the boat plaza, the launch site, and the swimming area in terms of activity areas. Next slide. And then these are some really lovely renderings showing just sort of what the experience could be like, having sort of a rocky beach shoreline, easy access into the water of the lake that is now, available for recreation. Okay, next slide. The second area is the Stream Valley area. Next slide. These are the current conditions. You can see the northern portion of what is now infilled, created land in the loop of what had been the lake and is now now land. Next slide. And you can see how it's the proposal for reintroducing a riverine environment, reintroducing the stream valley within, sort of under and around and within the promenade. That will end at a cascade that leads into the lake and has a bridge going across it for, views and experience. Next slide. And you can see that this is also the access. There will be a loop road, but then there will be a little sort of switchback so that people can go down and be able to experience that stream valley, not just view it. All right, next slide. We're going to move on to the shorelines and lawns section. You can see, next slide. Sort of the existing conditions were on the western side of the lake, on top of, we're looking at the infilled tank area. Next slide. And you can see the proposal. So you can see how it's being proposed to have, walkways and, some islands in the, wetland islands in the southern corner. And again, having an events plaza and an overlook. The events plaza would not have permanent event like resources. It's designed so that there can be pop-ups, but then also that infrastructure can go away so that it's sort of a lighter touch on the landscape and vistas. Next slide. The proposal also will include the creation of a rocky shoreline, wetlands, living shorelines, and islands near the lake's new western edge. Next slide. And this is, again, a rendering showing just sort of what the experience may be, walking on the path, watching Mayor Scott paddling in the water. Love that little Easter egg. Great job, guys. Next slide. And, the sort of design intent for making it a rocky shoreline, again, is really drawing on the design precedent of the area, right? That, in the park itself, there's a lot of, rocky stream valleys, the water infrastructure, there used to be many spring heads and fountains that provided fresh potable water using stone. It's just a very common material in this area, and so utilizing that and really leaning on that for the materiality is, I think, a very reasonable design decision. Next slide, please. And then finally, the proposal is to make the large grassy areas on top of the treated water tanks into event lawns, and so this will introduce new walking promenades, the events plaza, and will provide vistas of the lake. Next slide, please. You can see this is sort of showing what it might, the experience may be like at night, in terms of access, going to see a concert or performance right there on that lake frontage. Next slide, please. The final area under consideration is the Utah Gateway. Next slide, please. I'm sorry, these images are a little small, but the idea is to reintroduce the major entrance to the park from Druid Park Lake Drive. Currently, the sole entrance to the park from Druid Park Lake Drive is at Madison Avenue, and that's a multimodal entrance. This entrance will be a wide pedestrian boulevard. Next slide, please. And you can see the existing conditions versus the proposed. Next slide. And again, you can see sort of what the plan is. So it's really designed to be a wide, welcoming entrance for pedestrians and, basically anyone that's not in a car to enter the park in a welcoming and safe access point. Next slide, please. And then on the phase 2 of the project, you can see that the phase 2, which is not under consideration today, but it would be converting the boat plaza to a boat house and adding a bridge that will connect the promenades across the largest of the islands proposed. And that is, again, a later phase. Okay, next slide. And we're applying the guidelines. Again, because this property is city-owned but does not have a historic designation from CHAP, the Commission's review is advisory in nature, not regulatory, and we are applying Chapter 4, Design Guidelines for Historic Landscapes for this project. Next slide, please. Staff applied the guidelines from 4.1.2 public parks. Next slide. And the staff determined that the project meets these design guidelines. The proposal will retain historic landscape features that are critical to the park identity, such as vistas. And it also meets the guideline that directs that significant views in, out, and through the park be protected. That is also being retained. The project will also reintroduce historic landscape features that were once character-defining aspects of the natural environment, and then later of the plan's sort of naturalistic design, landscape design of the park, such as the stream valley. It will also reintroduce a pedestrian entrance from the park to the park from Druid Park Lake Drive. And the proposal will both maintain existing walking paths in the project area, as well as introduce new walking paths that are inspired by and enhance the historic circulation patterns. Next slide, please. Staff also applied 4.2.1 site context. Next slide. And staff found that the proposal meets these guidelines. The design team demonstrated their understanding of the historic spatial organization and land patterns, and they seek to not only retain but also restore aspects of those land patterns. Although the lawns proposed on top of the water tanks are not a historic feature in and of themselves, the use of them as an open space for events and gatherings is a sensitive contextual use. Similarly, while there is no historic precedent for islands in the lake itself is actually an aberration on the landscape. You know, this was a man-made lake designed to serve as a reservoir for drinking water, and there are also no natural lakes in Maryland in general. And so the design team thus looked to sort of more natural lake environments in other contexts to inform their proposal to make this feel more welcoming. And the proposal to add a variety of islands to increase the aquatic habitats and create a protected cove for the swimming area and boat launch is appropriate, as it will enhance the existing landscape. And therefore, staff finds that it meets the design guideline. Next slide, please. Staff also applied the guidelines for 4.2.4 fences, walls, and gates. Next slide. And staff found that the proposal meets the design guidelines. The plan is to reuse the salvaged stone from the wall that encircled the western portion of the lake to use it as cladding for the side walls of the planned cascade bridge that will cross over the output of the stream valley where it meets the lake. Next slide, please. Staff also applied 4.2.8 trees and other plantings. Next slide. The proposal provides a general overview of the landscape plan, and while at 50%, it does not and should not get into a very specific level of detail of providing planting lists, et cetera. It shows an understanding of the historic landscape over time, the nuanced ecological context of the various areas of the plan, and staff finds it meets the guidelines. Next slide, please. Neighborhood comments. Notice of this hearing was shared with Baltimore Heritage, Baltimore National Heritage Area, Preservation Maryland, and with community associations across the city. Typically for projects, we advise, the immediately surrounding neighbors. This is a jewel in the city, and it is a regional asset. So I did ask our colleagues in the Community Planning Revitalization Division to send out notice for this hearing to all of their community associations, because this is significant. And next slide, please. And next slide, please. Druid Hill Park is one of Baltimore's most significant public spaces, and the transfer of Druid Lake and new acreage of parkland is a tremendous opportunity to enhance this public resource in a multitude of ways. BCRP and its consultants undertook an extensive public outreach process that sought feedback from park users, and that feedback informed this design. The proposal presented to the Commission is informed by the layers of history and change at this site. It meets the desired programmatic and access needs, is informed by effective practices in stormwater management, forestry, and public spaces, and the proposal also fully meets the CHAP design guidelines on public parks, site context, fences, walls, and gates, and trees and other plantings. Next slide. And staff recommends advisory concept approval of phase 1 of the landscape plan with final details to be reviewed by CHAP staff. Thank you, commissioners. Any questions for me?
Thank you. Any questions for Lauren? Okay. Seeing none, Lauren, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead.
Timeline on the meeting.
I know that my colleagues at BCRP will be able to answer that question for you. Okay.
By all means, come on up. And give us both your full name for the record. Yep.
Good? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for your time today. We're thrilled to be presenting this project to you. Before I get into any comments, I do want to just acknowledge our team that's in the room. Unknown Studio is a Baltimore-based landscape architecture firm, and they're the project lead on this, leading a massive team of other consultants, engineers, surveyors, designers, et cetera. And I think that's everyone. People snuck in behind? Okay.
What is your name?
I'm so sorry. My name is Larissa Torres. I'm a design planner and the project manager for this project at Recreation and Parks, the Capital Division. Sorry about that. I was too excited to start thanking people. I did also want to briefly mention some thanks to other partners that have been supporting us since the beginning of this project. We're now 5 years in, more than 5 years into this project. We've been collaborating with local elected officials, including Senator Hayes, who's been instrumental in helping us get some fundraising done. We've been collaborating with our sister agency partners, DPW and DOT, most especially in the overlap of their adjacent projects to ours. So we're not doing this alone. By any means. So with that, I will dive into a few prepared comments, and then I'm sure we can have some discussion. With DPW's infrastructure project coming to a close, the city now has the exciting opportunity to convert Druid Lake from one type of public asset, a drinking water reservoir, to another, a public recreational lake open to all. For this transformative project, BCRP and our consultant team have faced a many-layered design process. To put it simply, I'm just going to run through a few of those as all of those things come together in what you saw today. First, very early in the design process, which Lauren was just mentioning, we had an extensive public engagement process as part of the vision plan, and early in that process, it became, from a bunch of the public feedback, 3 design pillars sort of elevated out of a bunch of the public feedback, and that was welcoming access, lakeside programming, and healthy ecosystems. And those are the 3 design pillars that we sort of continue to come back to for all of our design decisions as we've been moving through this iterative design process going forward. Another layer that has added to our design consideration is the many requirements and limitations of building an engaging active public space on top of and around critical public infrastructure of drinking water. That includes vehicular protection, activity and loading limitations, maintenance access points, tree planting limitations, among many others. Another layer of consideration is the whole reason that we are here today, the historical context, both the physical historical context and the cultural and activity historical context of this park. It was once, we've talked about the physical aspects of the picturesque nature of the park, the way it was designed, the stone walls and fencing, but it was also a cultural center point for many years, and that has fallen off most precipitously recently because of all this construction, that it just really became not a place that anybody wanted to go anymore. They're like, that's a mess over there, we're not going there. So we are looking forward to having this project be a catalyst to recenter this park in the public landscape. Another layer that we've been balancing throughout all this is the funding and phasing of this. through each of the iterative design phases, we do a cost estimate, we adjust things, we move forward. What we hope we have achieved, at least through this phase, through 50%, is establishing a good groundwork for the first phase will establish good groundwork for any future phases, both those that we envision now that Lauren pointed to, but also additional phases that maybe we don't have planned. And the last piece is the outreach piece that we have layered into our design process. We talked a little bit about the early outreach in the vision plan process. Most recently, we had a public survey in the fall, and we are about to open another public survey for this summer. All of those surveys include design pieces, programming pieces, input that can help us guide our design decisions going forward, our priorities in terms of phasing, and those type of things. So to summarize some prepared remarks, we have all of these layers contributing to our the resulting project before you today, the community-driven design pillars, the limitations and requirements of the tanks, the historic context, the funding and phasing perspective, and the ongoing public outreach. With all of the opportunities that a true recreational lake offers, Rec and Parks and our design team have worked within all of those layers to develop what we feel is a flexible but impactful space that can become the central park for Baltimore again. And that concludes my prepared remarks. I know there were several things that I heard in the presentation, and I know that some people might have some questions, so I am here to discuss.
Hi, thank you for that, your presentation. We okay?
Can we take a pause?
Sure.
Thanks. We're gonna-
Okay. All right, thank you. So I just wanted to say first that this design looks very thoughtful as far as, you know, with respect to the context, the natural elements, the constraints with not being able to put things on top of the tanks, and like the proposed uses. Like I used to work in the Steve Silver building and used to do a lap around the lake on my lunch break. So I'm really excited about everything that I'm seeing right now. So I just want to start with that. And my comments, questions are more just kind of thinking ahead. I understand we're just at 50%, but it's three kind of related questions. So one is, I'll just kind of overview my three questions and then let you respond. But the first is, so I did see in the pavilion image, like it looked like there was sort of like an evening view. So I was curious, I know a lot of city parks are dawn to dusk. And so I was just curious about lighting because I didn't see that specifically called out. And then also, and I'm just thinking about like liability things because, you know, it's better to kind of plan for it sooner than later. But with the swimming areas, if there are designated, you know, lookout spots for lifeguards, if that's required. Most of my experience has been with designing swimming pools and not public lakes, so I understand liability and legal things might be a little different. But just, you know, if we have to have those things, hopefully that'll be designed as thoughtfully as everything else and not an afterthought. And then I didn't see restrooms proposed. I'm guessing, or I just want to ask if the intent is if there's a bigger function at the pavilion, if that would be porta-johns being brought in, which I've seen for a lot of things in the city. And just a thought, just some thoughts of where those might go, because they're not the most sightly type of thing. And like when it's downtown, you can only put them where they are, but like the Renaissance Festival, there's like a little nook and it's kind of like shielded. So just everything looks so nice and I'd hate to just like plop those things out. So just kind of allowing for those things, you know, as for part of the design as you move forward. So I just wanted to kind of raise those items, but in general, I think this is great.
Sure, great, thank you. Yes, I can speak to all three of those things, because we have, in fact, thought about all of them. The lighting aspect, there is currently lighting installed from the DPW project, and that will be presumably coming online whenever they've finally finished their, sort of wrap up their project and pull out the construction fence and all of that. So there is proposed lighting along the perimeter pathway, and we are still finalizing any smaller scale, like if there are, you saw on one of the plans, there are multiple pathways sort of crisscrossing across. So we are considering additional lighting, and then we're also considering how to manage that lighting. Like, you know, is it controlled remotely? Is it only on for weekend evenings? Is it only on at certain times or for special events, or how to manage that? So we're working towards a operational solution, I think, is more the answer there than the actual infrastructure, which is already in. In terms of the swimming and the lifeguard situation, yes, absolutely. We have a risk officer at Rec and Parks, as I think many of our agencies do. We've been working with him on that, and we've also been working with our aquatics team, who, as Lauren said, there are no natural lakes in the state. The city and Rec and Parks manages only pools, but they have sort of national conferences where they do recreational aquatics. People come together, and they know some folks that run lake facilities. And so they're working with them, like, not to reinvent the wheel, right? What is federally required? What works for you? Let's sort of come up with a plan and a solution to do that. In addition to our risk team coming up with what is appropriate signage. Is it seasonal? Is it, dawn to dusk? Those type of scenarios. So we're working on that as well. For sure, there will be a roped swimming area and lifeguards during swimming season. But in terms of off-season stuff, that's when we have to look at additional protections, perhaps. And in terms of the restrooms, the Cafe and Boathouse will have restrooms. It'll be like a full bathhouse when that phase comes. But in the meantime, it will be something temporary, like semi-permanent porta-johns. They will be located in that same vicinity, and we're working on our next design phase to come up with some sort of, is it a temporary enclosure, like a 2-wall fence situation, or is there a place where we can sort of tuck it off the pathway that it's not quite such an eyesore odor as you're walking by? So we'll be working on that as well. Sure.
Awesome. Any other questions? Yes.
So in one of the slides in the presentation that was given us, it's a rendering of kind of the possible Cascade Bridge. And some of the notes talk about using the reclaimed stone, I'm guessing from the perimeter wall, and then possibly repurposing the railings, though the railing that's drawn in the rendering is just your kind of standard picket. Are those kind of real considerations that are practical and implementable, or are they just kind of like a, well, it would be nice to have, but don't know if it'll really work kind of thing?
They are very real considerations. The stone and the fencing are still living in the back of our Druid Park forestry yard. They can't wait for us to get rid of it. So they're like, please, how quickly is your project coming? The stone, I don't know any reason why we wouldn't be able to use that stone. It was previously cladding on a wall, so I don't know why we couldn't reuse it for that purpose. DPW has just done it at their entry plazas. All of those little walls and towers reuse all of the stone from those walls. So there's plenty of it, and I think we could absolutely use it. The railings, I think, gets a little trickier because of, we desperately want to use them. There are requirements for vehicular protection and what's the height and what's the strength of the stopping power for a vehicle and things like that we're going to have to look at in terms of the feasibility of using just those, or maybe they're a decorative face on top of something that is more appropriate. So the fence piece is a little more tricky, but the stone is a definite yes.
Sarah, go ahead.
Adding on to that, I would hope, looking at this rendering of the Cascade Bridge in the presentation, I would encourage Rec and Parks not to let an idea about material reuse limit the design possibilities of features like this, because I am thinking of all the bridges in Central Park and what beautiful works of art and whimsy they are in and of themselves. And I think that this presents a really good opportunity for something that is more remarkable than something where we can say, hey, we reuse this. So I know that, and I'm confident that our colleague who had to recuse himself, that anything that he touches would be fantastic. But all these are all that and the band shell or whatever for that may or may not be part of the current plan. These are just wonderful opportunities for design and expression.
That was actually going to be my other comment about the bridge, is it very much looks like a vehicular access bridge, and so I agree with my fellow commissioner for sure.
I wanted to ask one question. With all these amazing slides that we have at our disposal, will there be an area in the park that just shows the history of what Druid Hill used to look like in comparison is now? Because when I'm looking at it, I see this evolution of landscape, but trying to make sure it doesn't get historically lost in people visiting and going to concerts and using porta potties, you know what I mean? So I just want to think if that's something that could be taken into consideration, because I remember going to Central Park and they've got areas where they show old stuff and you're like, oh man, this is what it used to look like. So I just want to know, has that been in conversation?
So do you mean the physical old stuff? Like here's a piece
Well,
of
like
old
a picture or something that's,
Signage
yeah,
or-
signage, yeah.
Yeah.
Old photos that, when the water and the snow hits, it doesn't get damaged. You can just still look at it year round,
Yeah, so interpretive signage is part of our scope, part of our implementation plan is to include exactly what you're talking about so that people can understand a little bit about the tanks. And, because a lot of times we'll hear, even just now, I work just catty corner from this, and people are like, why aren't they putting any trees out here? It's such a huge space. I'm like, well, actually. And in addition to all of the historical context, right? There were a bunch of great images here. We have so many more of what pieces used to be here. How did this come to be? Why does it look the way it does? I love that idea.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, if there's no other questions. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Just a question as far as it's a lot here. What's kind of the timeline as far as I know we had the start date was in the slides, but when they're hoping to start, but to have everything completed. And I asked that question of, is there a phase out? What does the phasing looks like? Is it's open once everything's finished, or is there we would like to get this part done? Because I think there's an opportunity to begin activating the space even when it's not completely finished yet, maybe to kind of encourage some people that when it's done to actually start utilizing it again.
Yes, a terrific question. For a little bit of timeline, I see it did not convert well on slide 6 of the big deck that you all had. That graphic did not come out well. But in terms of phase 1 for the scope of this project, we're targeting completion in 2030. So construction maybe in 28, bidding in 27, maybe. So that's that approximate build-out timeline for phase 1. But in the interim, once DPW pulls down their fence, I know our special events team, our programming team are sort of gnashing their teeth to get at that space. So hopefully this summer we'll be able to see some nice events out there. I think Pride is supposed to happen there. The fence should be down for AFRAM. Those are just a couple weeks away. So hopefully we'll be seeing more along those lines for the rest of the summer.
You actually started answering. My question was actually around programming and events. Outside of the larger events, what kind of thought have you given to smaller groups, either securing a portion of it or like, can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. So our Rec and Parks special events team does the big events, but they also rent out all the pavilions, they rent out fields for athletic events or Volo City or anything like that. So they are already looking at some of the locations. So there are two little, not that little, entry plazas that are actually part of the tank's infrastructure. They're sort of disguising that infrastructure. And they're looking at maybe the possibility of renting out those spaces. And then in terms of the build out, we have the Utah Plaza, we have the Boat Lake Boathouse Plaza, and then we have the large events plaza. So that's 3 more spaces that could also be rented for small or large events, family gatherings, school concerts, field trips, etc.
Okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. On our public testimony sign-in sheet, we only have one person, Claire.
That was a maybe if I needed to answer a question.
Okay.
She said it all.
All right, great. Well, thank you for the maybe. Thank you. Commissioners, before we render a decision, would you all like to deliberate any questions amongst one another?
Online, if there's any.
Oh, thank you, thank you. We have any online? Oh, that's right, that's
We're
right.
having- we're
We're
having
having
a-
technical issues.
Yeah, we're having a technical issue with WebEx, so we do not have anyone online at this point in time. And after this item, we're going to take a brief pause to fix WebEx.
People are online, but you're muted is what it sounds
No, so, yeah. Yeah, so I did figure out what the issue was, and I'm working on getting, we just have to do a switcheroo for the old meeting that was set up to the new one. So.
Okay, understood. Okay, back to the table. Is there anyone here that has any conversation amongst each other about the recommendation? All right, seeing none. Recommendation, staff recommends advising concept approval of Phase 1 of the landscape plan with final details to be reviewed by CHAP staff. Do I have a motion to proceed with the recommendation?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any abstain? Any opposed? The ayes have it. Cool. We'll take a brief break so that the staff can take care of our technical.
And then,
Okay.
your name.
Yeah, right click.
Briefly explain it. And then,
Okay, then I have to do the sound.
Testing, testing.
Can everyone hear me?
okay. Thank you, everyone joining us on WebEx. We just want to test our audio. And I am going to request that Christina unmute so that we can see if we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Christina.
Welcome.
Okay.
Let's see if this works. Nope. Six.
Yeah, we're gonna start.
Okay.
Okay, next we have 5601 South Bend Road, 2026 Carterdale Road, and Block 4706C Lot 008, Mount Washington Historic District. Request final review of subdivision plan, including details for 7 houses. The applicant is Workhorse Residential LLC, and the staff is Mr. Eddie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. We have a return of the project for request of final review of subdivision plan for 7 houses in the Mount Washington Historic District located at 5601 South Bend Road, 2026 Carterdale Road, and Block 4706C, Lot 8 of the Mount Washington District. Workhorse Residential is the applicant. As we've already seen, next slide, please. As we've already seen previously, the site is located in the southern section of the Mount Washington District, located at the very almost southern end of the district. And next slide, please. in more detail along here in a wooded section, mostly undeveloped, last remaining large lots of the Mount Washington district. Next slide, please. The original 5601 South Bend Roadhouse was owned by Ephraim Potts family for the majority of its lifespan. The lot area and surrounding woods was part of this location. Next slide, please. So historically, we can see the topography. The house, the original historic house, sits at the top of a hill with slopes leading down toward a stream bed. The other half of the property that is being reviewed is across from that small stream. Next slide, please. Here we have a better context of the area in 1927, and currently we show the 3 lots of the property. Next slide, please. Here we go. This shows the adjoining property to the north, which was the most recently reviewed property in this part of Mount Washington back in the late 1990s. And we see the rest of the, we see the Ephraim Potts house and the rest of the lot here. Next slide, please. This is some context showing the surrounding area. The majority of the properties are outside the historic district. Next slide, please. And we see a little bit of evolution of the historic site from 1915 through the 1950s and the subdivision that originally occurred here. Next slide, please. Background. Okay, so the CHAP Commission has already previously seen and made motions in June of 2025. The applicants returned with modifications as the project was disapproved in June. In August 2025, they came back and there was approval for the subdivision plans with further requests to explore siting the houses on lots 2 and 3 further back. They were to return for a full commission. In the August 2025 presentation, the applicants presented some houses having rear garages and side-loading garages. All the rear garages have been eliminated, and only a couple of side-loaded garages now remain. The applicants have removed the rear garages and driveways in order to reduce the impervious surface for the whole development. This reduction directly affects the stormwater runoff totals. The applicants are requesting a final review of the site plan and final review of the 7 new houses. The commission will consider the proposed property lines, siting orientation, and the proposed buildings height, massing, scale, buildings, and site work. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, this is the current existing conditions on the site. We see the stream that's located and bisects the property. Next slide, please. And we have the proposed grading plan, which the applicants have provided. Next slide. And the proposed subdivision plan. The applicants propose to construct 7 new single-family houses on lots surrounding the historic Potts house. Next slide. Next slide, please. Thank you. All right. We have the proposed site plan. As you see, there's a substantial protected forest buffer along the rear and along the stream bed. Next slide, please. This is a view of the historic house known as Lot 1 on the property. Proposed Lot 2 is on the left and 3 on the other side. Next slide, please. Street view of the historic house, proposed Lot 1, proposed Lot 2 on the left, and 3 on the right. Next slide, please. This is the current example of the house being proposed for Lot 1. Next slide. And this is the previous example of the house proposed for Lot 1, substantially the same. Next slide. Street view looking northeast, lots 3 and 4. We see the historic house at the top of the hill. Next slide, please. This is the rendering showing the proposed street view of looking northeast of lots 3 and 4. We see the historic house in the middle. Next slide. Current elevation plan for, I believe it's house lot 3. Next slide, please. Yeah, and this is the previous iteration of the approved for lot 3. Next slide. View looking east, showing proposed lot 4. Next slide, please. Current rendering showing the house for lot 4. We see a side driveway here in this view. This is showing the actual topography of the site. Next slide. And then we see a view looking east showing proposed lot 4 and also the top of the stream bed that bisects the property. Next slide. The current elevation of the next lot building. Next slide, please. Lot 4. It's got a steep topography on the site. Next slide. Overall, this is the grading plan for the northern lots north of the stream bed. Next slide. And this is the grading plan for the lots nearest on the Carterdale portion on the southern end of the stream bed. Next slide. Street view looking east for lots 5 and 6, current condition. Next slide. And the rendering for the proposed lots of 5 and 6, how they would appear looking from across the street. Next slide. Current elevation plan for lot 5. Next slide. And the previous iteration design for lot 5. Next slide, please. Street view looking northwest for lots 5 and 6. Next slide, please. And also here we have the same looking northwest at 5 and 6. Next slide, please. And I believe this is lot 5, current version with a side-loaded garage. Next slide, please. And the previous version of, lot 6. Next slide, please. Street view looking northeast, current view of lots 7 and 8. Next slide. And looking northwest at lots 7 and 8 as rendered and proposed. Next slide. And this is the current revised version of the elevations. Next slide, please. And previous of lot 7. Next slide, please. Current view of lot 8. Next slide, please. And previous iteration with lot 8. Next slide, please. Street view looking northwest. This is on West Rogers Avenue. This is the first building as you turn into Carterdale and up into the site. Next slide, please. Application of guidelines. So, CHAP staff reviewed, applied the following sections of the guidelines of the Baltimore City Preservation Design Guidelines. We looked at 2.1, guiding principles for new construction, 2.2, site design, 2.3, scale and form, 2.4.1, building entrances, 2.4.3, garages, 2.4.5, roofs, 2.5.1, doors and windows, 2.5.2, materials, 4.1.1, streetscapes, 4.1.4, ecologically sensitive areas, 4.2.1, site context, 4.2.2, views, 4.223, street, alley, and parking, and 5.1, archaeological features. I don't think we left anything out. So, thank you. 2.1, guiding principles of new construction. Next slide, please. Overall, this section was covered, and the applicant's proposal does meet this guideline. Next slide. This 2.2, site design. Overall, this was previously reviewed and approved by the commission, and the proposal meets this guideline. 2.3, scale and form. Yes. So, next slide, please. Overall, this was reviewed and approved by the commission at the last hearing. The plans as presented meet this guideline. 2.4.1, next slide. Thank you. Building entrances. Overall, the proposals were modified for the last hearing, and they maintain the same general proposals, and this meets the CHAP guidelines. Next 2.4.3 garages. The proposal complies with its design guidelines. Lots 2, 3, and 7 no longer are designed with detached garages located at the rear of the houses. The houses on lots 5 and 6 have integrated 2-bay side-loading garages at grade or at the basement level, depending on the topography. So those are the main significant changes. So there are no more rear parking areas or garages, and 2 of the houses no longer have 2-bay garages loaded into them, but instead have driveways. 5.4.5 roofs. The proposal meets this guideline. Next slide, please. 2.5.1 doors and windows. Proposal complies with this guideline. The doors reflect the styles of the individual houses, whether they are craftsman style or the farmhouse style. Next slide, please. 2.5.2 materials. The proposal complies with this guideline. The materials chosen are compatible with the varied styles of materials found throughout the historic district. In the color, size, texture, scale, and quality finishes being proposed are contemporary and found existing throughout the historic district. Next slide, please. Streetscapes. Lots 2 and 3 continue to have shallower setbacks than the historic houses, which does not clearly comply with the design guidelines. The commission requested the applicants explore the setting of the houses on these lots further back. On lots 5 through 8, the houses have a fairly shallow setback and are closer to the street than the neighboring houses on West Rogers Avenue. The proposed development mostly meets this guideline. Next slide, ecological sensitive areas. This proposal does meet this guideline as written. 4.2.1 site context. The overall site context, the proposal meets this guideline. Next slide, 4.2 views. Yes, this is the overall context views of the site. Next slide. Okay. Ecologically sensitive areas. Next slide. Site context. The overall proposal of the site context as proposed meets this CHAP guideline as previously reviewed and approved. Next slide. 4.2 views. This proposal largely meets this guideline as proposed. Next slide, please. Streets, alleys, and parking. The proposed new development will slightly affect the existing road alignment, width, and configuration. The proposed driveways and parking pads are configured to be minor visual elements to the approach and entry of the front elevation. There are numerous driveways located in the front yards throughout this historic district, and the proposed driveways will not detract from the historic character. The parking areas will not be highly visible as they are largely located in 2-bay side-loaded garages or in the driveway pads next to and set back on the side elevations of the new houses. The vehicles will be more visible on the parking pads. The driveways cannot be screened due to the lot configurations and locations of the driveways and garages. The proposed plans extend the sidewalk and will slightly narrow the roadbed in front of lots 1 through 4. The proposed development meets the guideline as the new parking areas are not highly visible to the public right-of-way. Archaeological features, the proposal, next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. The proposal meets this CHAP guideline. Next slide. Neighborhood comments. One moment. So in your packets that were received on the WIC site, we have, Mr. Josh Neiman is here to elaborate for the community, but I will highlight they have expressed some concerns about the proposal, about the color, scale, texture, materials, landscape plans, the lack of clear, more comprehensive landscape plans, that is. If expressed concerns, the elevation drawings did not show much in the way of detailed measurements. And concerns about in essence, the issue of the vehicles now being on parking paths beside the house and not in the rear as originally proposed. Fenestration, a principal concern that the buildings should have additional windows on their side elevations particularly. And Mr. Neiman will get into more detail in his speech. We also have presented in your packets from Mosley Architects a review of the proposal on behalf of the neighborhood. There are several areas of additional development and review that are felt warranted. Materials presented in the current submission are not sufficiently developed to allow a complete assessment of compatibility with the district. Additional documentation should be provided. Architectural detailing and craftsmanship. Many of the details remain conceptual in nature. Additional information is requested. Fenestration, again, a concern that there should be additional fenestration on the elevations, front, sides, and back. The illustrative renderings, the historic landscapes depicted extensive lawns surrounding the proposed homes with relatively little evidence of comprehensive planting strategy. It's felt that additional canopy trees should be incorporated to the site. More developed landscape should be submitted and signed by former CHAP Chairman Tom Liebel. Next slide, please. Analysis. So overall, the CHAP guidelines have been met by the development group for all the proposals. The proposal meets guiding principles of new construction, as the proposed new houses will be compatible with the historic setting and surrounding architectural styles. It generally meets site design, as the layout of the proposed development generally follows the patterns of lots of the historic district. Due to curving roads, some of the new houses will have significant portions of the side elevations visible from the public right-of-way, and public consideration has been taken of these highly visible side elevations. The plans largely meet guidelines, scale, and form, as the proposed houses will be similar in scale and form to the surrounding historic houses. The proposal meets guideline building entrances because the proposed porches are now functional spaces as found in the historic district. The proposal meets guideline garages, as garages are side loading. The proposed development meets roofs, as the proposed roofs are compatible with those found in the historic district. The proposed development meets doors and windows, as the styles proposed reflect the styles proposed for each house type. The proposal meets guidelines materials, as the materials selected are reflective of materials found throughout the historic district, but are also identifiable as products of their time. The proposed development largely complies with streetscapes, as the setbacks are largely similar to comparable setbacks in the immediate surroundings. The setbacks of the houses on lots 2 and 3 are more shallow than the setbacks in the historic houses. The applicant has stated that these lots are not set back further so that they limit the impact of the forest conservation easements, limits the rear yard grading and disturbance, provides a gradual transition of front yard depth, and limits the impervious area of the site's stormwater management requirements. Proposal meets guidelines ecologically sensitive areas. As the plans call for large portions of the forest and the stream to be protected from development. The development plan largely complies with site contacts as the topography will be retained as much as possible. The proposed development plan largely complies with views as the new construction minimizes the impact of the historic views of the historic house and the natural environment, even though the houses on lots 2 and 3 are visually dominant and staff recommended originally exploring how to set them back further. Yeah, the applicants have provided sufficient reasoning why these houses cannot be set back further on their lots. Proposal meets guidelines, street, alley, and parking, as the houses no longer have front garage entries with driveways that visually emphasize the importance of the car on the front elevation. Houses in the district have a variety of driveways and garages, but the majority of driveways will no longer direct the car to be hidden in the rear of the house. The vehicles will be more visible on the parking pads beside the houses. The proposed development will meet guideline archaeological features as the applicant hires a professional archaeologist to complete a phase 1 survey within the limits of the disturbance of the project, and which the applicants have agreed to conduct a study. Next slide, please. Recommendation. CHAP staff recommends final approval of subdivision plan with final details to be reviewed and approved at the staff level. Thank you, commissioners.
Man, Eddie. Thank you, sir. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Eddie? Okay.
Did I miss anything?
Oh, yeah, we have online, the architect is online. Yeah, the developer, thank you. From Workhorse Development. Sure, go ahead.
Okay, Eddie, sorry.
Yes.
Great presentation. I might be asking you to repeat something, so I apologize up front. Because I know you've said a lot. But can you remind me really quickly, I'm reading through Mr. Neiman's comments from the community about the driveways.
Correct.
And the garages, but can you refresh from your presentation the why?
Okay, so originally the proposal had several houses that included front-loaded garages.
Yeah.
The commission at the June hearing disapproved of the plan that included those front-loaded garages and directed the applicants to approach other forms. So in the August 2025 hearing, the applicants came back with proposals that included garages in the rear and side-loaded garages, and I think only maybe one lot, because of limitations, had to have a side driveway. Because of impervious issues with impervious surface and stormwater management and trying not to affect the forest conservation area, the rear garages have been removed. So the parking pad areas of those rear garages are no longer existing, and therefore there is less impervious surface. However, the driveways, as they're located only to the side of the houses, sort of comply with the guidelines that they're not primarily in the front, but may still be visible.
Okay.
Go ahead.
One other question, in the analysis is that staff fully reviewed the proposal and had determined that the proposed development plan fully meets most of the CHAP guidelines. There's certain ones that may not just.
Yeah, well, that's the nuance of the visibility of the vehicles.
It was that one, okay. I just want to make sure it wasn't
And
anything else.
not fully refined details of the landscaping plan.
Okay, cool. Thanks for the clarification.
Eddie, thank you. Are we ready to talk to Mr. Scooter online? I'm sorry, y'all. Mr. Scooter Monroe is his name. If you can hear us, you are next on the list to speak about 5601 Southbound Bend Road. Are you online?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. So first, I'd like to thank the CHAP Commission for allowing us to be here. I apologize for not being there in person, but definitely wanted to just spend a little bit of time addressing a few things that came up in the presentation and some of the objections that we have heard from the folks in the community. I'll start with, we have had several meetings with the community, both formally and informally, with kind of the near neighbors that live, right adjacent to the proposed project. And then we've, sat with the Mount Washington Improvement Association and had a couple of presentations with them. I think generally the tone of those meetings have been positive. And we have been, I think, very responsive to some of the concerns of the community. And I think it's detailed, in Mr. Leon's presentation, that we've made several adjustments to our plan along the way to, frankly, make the project better, but also be in responsive to some of the specific needs that community members have raised. The biggest of which is just the simply the number of houses that were on the site. And I think, in the history, folks may remember there were, 3 to 4 more houses proposed on this site. And after talking with the community and looking at the site plan, we agreed that it was better to scale down the number of houses, less impact on the wooded, conservation area. That wooded area is now all within the conservation area where the previous houses were shown. We've also made adjustments to the lot size in response to community concerns and the conservation easement. House orientation, for example, the way houses were sited and looking at the street, we made specific adjustments for folks in the communities. We've also looked at house, location on the lot, where the houses sit relative to the street. We've made several adjustments of that in concert with the community. The one thing that I'll raise, and I think it was raised that as one of the guideline pieces that maybe we didn't meet to a T. First, along Carterdale, if we can maybe pull up the map while I'm talking here, there are 4 houses along Carterdale. Those houses sit closer to the road, and that actually is more in keeping with the character of the Mount Washington neighborhood. Many of the houses in Mount Washington sit closer to the road. We received variances from BMZA and approval from the Planning Commission for the location of those houses. There's also a lot size variance that we received. This was in response to comments from staff and from the community to make those lots smaller in favor of keeping the conservation easement on one lot. So as we work up around to South Bend, the houses are set back a little bit further. The reason for that is that there's not as much restriction of the stream in the forest conservation area. So you're able to, push the houses a little bit further back off the road. And also the historic house is set back far, which really isn't in keeping with, the current makeup of the neighborhood. But we didn't want such a drastic change in the streetscape. So as you'll see, as you come around Carterdale onto South Bend, we kind of step the houses back, and then the historic house is there, and then the house at the top on lot 2 there is a little bit closer to the road. So it's a little bit of a blending of the front yards and the setbacks, just to make it look a little bit more aesthetically pleasing as you go along the streetscape. We also looked at things like traffic, the narrowing of Carterdale to reduce, speed and traffic along there with the community. And all of these adjustments, as I said, I think has made for a better project overall. Another note that I'll put forward in terms of our interaction with the community, I read a letter that was submitted by Josh Neiman, and I know that Josh is going to have a talk here. Throughout our interactions, we've provided several photos and renderings of what the project is going to look like. In previous presentations, we have shown photos of actual houses that are built today that are of similar architectural character, similar materials as the houses being proposed. We've provided photos of materials close up of hardy siding and stamped concrete and porch railings and things of that nature. And then we provided 5 renderings of 7 houses. I heard a comment that maybe we provided the bare minimum. I think that 5 renderings on 7 houses showing each of the houses from different points of view is sufficient for a project of this size. We even went as far as to provide a custom view rendering directly from across the street from one of the neighbors' fire pits at their request. So, I think we've gone above and beyond in terms of the level of renderings and information that we've provided. We're happy to provide, additional details as required by the CHAP guidelines. But I just want to make the point that we've exceeded the bare minimum here. Just a couple of things I'd like to note that this project is, substantially by and large by right. They've had, obviously there are a handful of variances that I spoke of before as it relates to, the stream setback and the lot sizes due to the forest conservation. We're happy to continue to work with the community and CHAP staff. But, I believe that we've really put our best foot forward on this project. We've worked with the staff and the community, and we remain excited to invest in Baltimore City and bring needed single-family housing to a desirable neighborhood like Mount Washington. So I appreciate everyone's time, and please let me know if there's any other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Monroe. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Mr. Monroe? Yes.
Hi, thank you. I do recall this discussion from before, and so I do appreciate the preservation of the easement and the challenging constraints that have been, that you've been working with. So my comment is not so much about the layout of the lots, but the relationship to the streetscape. So I'm looking at, the renderings, and so one thing that I notice is that the houses that have the shallower lots that are closer to the road, I noticed that there's a little buffer planting strip and there is some street trees there. However, in the renderings that show the houses that are farther back from the street, there is no buffer strip and there are no street trees, which I notice compared to the character of the surrounding area, it seems like street trees are generally pretty prolific throughout there. And it's really jarring looking at some of these renderings because you see this lovely backdrop of the protected easement and then the houses, and then it's just this really wide expanse of lawn. And I think I can understand the sentiment that may be coming from the community with not seeing a landscape plan showing where there may be street trees and the experience of the pedestrian walking by. So my question is really, would it be possible, can we look into putting more street trees and, showing that information?
Yeah, so I'll address 2 parts of that, and we have Caroline Hecker, who's in the audience, that can maybe kind of speak to some of the landscape requirement pieces. But as you're on South Bend Road, there's an existing sidewalk there And that sidewalk is directly up against the street. There is no kind of buffer there between the street and the sidewalk. So it literally goes street, curb, sidewalk. And that is something that, we could, look at adding additional, trees in the landscaping package along that frontage to kind of soften that edge. On Carterdale, that will be a completely new sidewalk. So from the edge, the last lot 8 all the way up to where you see the stream buffer start, there will be sidewalk there, and then we actually narrow Carterdale a little bit to bump out and around the stream buffer and the forest conservation area, and continue sidewalk around there. The renderings are representative of what will happen, and I think we would need to further develop the final landscaping plan to show what trees will exactly be where, and what we can add if needed along South Bend Road.
And Mr. Monroe, your team just came up to the mic, so if there's anything they'd like to add.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon. Caroline Hecker, Rosenberg, Martin Greenberg. I represent the developer. Mr. Monroe, his information may not have caught up to him fully, but we do have a fully approved landscape plan that shows the addition of 25 street trees that do go all the way up along South Bend and Carterdale. The species are identified in the plan, and this was part of our site plan review committee submission, and it was part of the final subdivision approval that was granted last week by the Planning Commission. While I'm up here, I just would like to add that the city recently, particularly within the last year or two, has articulated a very clear policy of encouraging development of additional housing in the city. And at last week's Planning Commission, Deputy Mayor Calvin Young really made a point of praising the project for bringing more housing to desirable neighborhoods. One of the things that the city has, we have great neighborhoods, but we don't have a lot of available new housing in some of the more desirable parts of town. Mount Washington is a great neighborhood that people want to live in, and this will bring new homes to that neighborhood. We've gone through years of community and city review, and I've read the letters that were submitted to the commission, and it's a little bit hard to see those and hear those as anything other than an attempt to further delay the project. The city should be encouraging the development of additional housing options as articulated by the Planning Commission. In fact, at last week's Planning Commission, there was one vote against the subdivision approval, and it was on the basis that that commissioner thought it should be a denser project. There should be more houses. But the level of detail that I read in the letters that the community still would like to see is exactly the type of detail that's appropriate to be worked out at the staff level. And we're happy to continue to work with CHAP staff to iron out the final details. We think this is a great plan. We're really excited to move forward and bring these additional houses to the city.
Great.
Thank you.
Introduce yourself. There you go.
Hi, my name is Julian Amaya. I am a law clerk working at Rosenberg, Martin Greenberg, and I work for Carolyn.
Oh, great stuff. Okay. Cool. Hold on one second for the both of you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Mr. Monroe or the team in front of us? Yes, ma'am.
I know I'm kind of hiding over here. So I do applaud the work that's been done in the reduction in the number of lots. I do think that fits a lot nicer. And also the development of additional and differing details. And, I noticed you have siding versus shakes and some of those things. So I do really appreciate some of the thought and intention into that. My question is, given that Mount Washington does have such varied materials, and there certainly is plenty of siding and shakes in the neighborhood. There's also brick, there's also stucco. Has there been any consideration of incorporating any of those materials in addition to or instead of siding on, one or two of the houses?
That's probably a better question for Mr. Monroe to answer if he's still available online. I only play an architect on TV.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm still here, and we looked at we looked at all of the houses in Mount Washington, both in the historic district and nearby, on nearby streets, and ultimately we landed on the design that we had, given that it's such an eclectic neighborhood, as you're pointing out, that there are varying different styles of architecture throughout the community. We feel that the designs here are really in keeping with what the market wants, and we've seen these homes be successful, and we think that some of the additional things that we worked with the CHAP Commission on, of adding livable porches, adding additional windows on the sides of the houses, additional trim work. We think that really works. So this, we call this the cottages at Mount Washington, and we want the new homes to feel cohesive versus having one all brick home or something like that. So I hope that answers your question, but based on looking at the market in the neighborhood, we felt that the designs that we have worked.
Thank you. That answers my question. And I do appreciate that none of the houses in the renderings are white with black trim. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I think that trend is passing.
Any other? Yes, sir.
I just had a quick question. I don't think we have a copy of the landscape plan. Do we have that?
No. That would be great. I can give you a hard copy and I can email it to you. I don't have it electronically at my fingertips, but I do have, hang on, here it is. Oh, sorry, I've got 1,000 pieces of paper here. Thank you, Julian. In fact, I'll give you this whole packet. This is the entire subdivision submission, which includes the landscape plan and the landscape details.
Thank you.
And it's very tiny.
Good. Anyone else? Okay, Mr. Monroe, thank you. Team, thank you so much. Appreciate it. You're welcome. For this project, we have two testimonies. First, we're going to bring up Mr. Josh Newman. And please give your full name for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Josh Neiman. I am the chairman of the Mount Washington Improvement Association. I'm also the interim ARC chair for Mount Movement Association. I also happen to live directly across the street from this development, so I'm intimately familiar with it. I will try and be as fast as I can. I got a lot here to say. I find myself in an unenviable position today, which is to respectfully disagree with two people that I very much respect, both Caroline Hecker and Eddie Leon. I've worked with them over the last 20 years. You all have in your packets the letters that I sent on this. I'm going to try and summarize that as quickly as possible. Let me start by saying, I want new neighbors. I believe that this is a desirable neighborhood. I would love to see these houses built. I am not opposed to these houses, nor are the reasonable people in the Mount Washington community. I underscore the word reasonable. I defended this project recently on the listserv, where I was told I shouldn't be involved in this because I'm an evil developer, and therefore there's a conflict of interest. So I want to place that misnomer aside. I think the developer has made great strides from the previous developer. It was the previous developer that had 9 or 10 additional homes. This developer has always had 7 homes since its May 4th submission. That said, we don't think there is enough information, in my humble opinion, to have you, the commission, approve final design at this time. Specifically, we think that there should be more specificity regarding materials with regard to color, texture, size, etc. When I go to a UDAP hearing, the architect brings a box of materials when we go to final approval. And UDAP is just advisory. Shouldn't this commission have something to say about what is going to be put up there to make sure that it is with the design guidelines, rather than 6 pictures that were on page 14 of the presentation the developer made to the community? I'd like to see more refined elevations that show trim assemblies, porch columns, railings, fascia boards, etc., to make sure that these will achieve the level of craftsmanship that the developer is proffering, and I believe will achieve. But we would like to see that. Fenestration, there's been a lot of talk about that. Eddie spoke about it. Mr. Liebel in his letter speaks to that specificity. Layman's talk, to me, some of these elevations don't make sense, that particularly the rear and side elevation. There are some of the homes which you don't seem to experience from the ground. They seem to be almost blank walls. It's particularly true, although there are more windows than were originally there, this is particularly true with lots 2, 3, 5, and 7. I was not aware of the new landscape drawings that just came out, but I would like to see what's going on at the ground level to channel Ms. Bradley from UDAP. There are going to be large foundation walls, stamped concrete. How will these be screened so that people will know what is happening? Those aren't shown in the elevations. They're not shown in the renderings. On the garages, happy to answer a question. I'm going fast on this because you had asked a question about the garages. I am concerned that the parking pads, people will not park all the way back, so the cars will be proud of the garages and thus making them seem like a front-loaded garage. I think this is particularly true with Lot 4, which is unique because it's a corner lot. Transparency, I live across the street from Lot 4, but because it is unique, it has 2 front elevations. And so that Carterdale side elevation, those cars are going to be very prominent. I encourage you to look at the 2 renderings for Lot 4 because I think, whether it's intentional or not, I think that they don't match. They're somewhat misleading. I'd like you all to look back at my 2 previous letters that I submitted regarding the CHAP violations on the existing house. I realize you are not reviewing that. I realize the developer does not have a relationship with the house owner other than that he's buying the land from the house owner. But the community needs assurance that the violations addressed in those houses will be fixed before it proceeds, because if the project's approved before the violations are addressed, there's no more leverage. So let me be clear, as I said before. I'm not here to express opposition to the development. I am not here to delay it, as was said before. I believe in home ownership. We welcome new neighbors into Mount Washington. We're simply asking for more information. CHAP is the last significant entitlement hurdle. I have one paragraph. And unlike UDAP, these guidelines, whose guidelines are advisory, these are mandatory. We as the community are relying on you to ensure that the houses the developer is proposing meet the CHAP guidelines and will protect the architectural integrity of the district. We strongly urge you to ask the developer to simply come back with more information in July or August so that the community and this commission can be happy knowing the process worked to create the best possible development. Before the gavel, I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
You can now take a breath.
Thank you. You have any questions?
Any questions? Okay, yes, ma'am.
I have a process question, which might be better for Lauren, which is when we approve for final details to be reviewed with staff, is the community association also in the process of those final details?
Yes, the architectural review committee does have, is involved in that process.
Okay,
Yes.
so if we were to approve it as the recommendation is with final details to go to staff, the local ARC will see those and be able to comment?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question. Really, it's on the Lot 4, and it really is about the community and the discussions that you all have had. From what I remember of the hearings that we've had and the discussions, there are a lot of trade-offs.
Yes, there were. And I appreciate the work that we've done together with the development. Again, I want that out there.
No, I get it.
Publicly out
But
there.
in Mr. Leon, kind of when I asked the why, this what you kind of went through and talked about the impervious surface, and I was looking at the limit of disturbance and all of these things from the community standpoint. What is your limit on trade-offs, right? Like, so what things do you all value more in terms of your communications with the developer?
Well, I go back to that word reasonable members of the community, and we all know that there can be unreasonable members of communities. I think we very reasonably came to, and I'm glad this site plan is up, the previous plan, the 4 houses on Carterdale Road, had much larger lots. and a portion of the, and the trade-off with the developer, including the stream bed, and the trade-off with the developer for the BMZA variance on lot size was to put more land into that conservation easement on a single lot as opposed to on individual lots. So there was one lot that owned that conservation. I thought that was a very reasonable trade-off. I think, again, it's an unenviable position, as I said, because we have worked quite well together. I have had other developers, the previous developer on this site, which was nowhere near as reasonable as Mr. Monroe has been. I'm not saying no, I'm asking, show me a little bit more, you know? And if you look at the elevations, the only elevation that has measurements on it is the front elevation. Now, I'm not an architect, and I don't know what is typically submitted to this commission. If that's what's typically submitted, then that's what's typically submitted. But I think that you would want to see, we would want to see more meat on them. What's the trim size here? Is it quarter inch? Is it half inch? Is it that kind of thing? To leave it up in the air for such, I mean, this is the last prominent undeveloped property in Mount Washington. And I look forward to walking across the street and meeting my neighbors. I don't know where I'm going to put my lawn clippings anymore, but that's neither here nor there.
Commissioner Woods, if I may. So, Josh, so correct me. Are you saying, because from what I see, from what we see, I'm just speaking for myself here, though. I see elevation, I see pictures black and white, and I see a couple of color pictures.
Mm-hmm.
What are you looking for specifically beyond that? Because we were given this, which is some of the regular homes that exist in there. What is it that you're looking for?
So if you look at the black and white elevations, you have four elevations: front, back, left, right. Okay, just the front elevation has measurements. It's bold measure. You don't see the trim measurement. I would like to see more windows. I'd particularly like to see windows, as I say in my written statement. If you look in Mount Washington, drive around, most of the houses have a fixed window in the attic, all right, to break up that plane of the attic on both sides. Asked the developer said, was dismissive of that request. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see, again, I'm not an architect, but the side elevations are seemingly, and we're viewing, as I say in my written testimony, we are viewing these elevations somewhat in a vacuum because I don't know the floor plan. So I could say, this looks like a blank wall, there should be windows there. Well, there may be a closet there, which is why the window's not there, but I don't know, right? And so, I do have a window in my closet, but I'm not everybody. I like a lot of glass in my house. So that's the sort of thing.
No, that makes sense to me. I was just trying to figure out specifically where you landed. I want to give Sean an opportunity, but before you sit down, commissioners, do you have any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you.
Thank you,
Sean,
Mr.
come on
Chairman.
up.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yes, sir. Thanks. And Sean, if you could give us your full name, sir.
Yeah, my name is Sean Zhang. So I'm the current the owner of the property 5607. I just distributed a photo I just took this morning, so you can see the one on the left side is my property, and then the one on the right is the current existing property. So as you can see in the pictures, between the two houses, we do have a lot of mature trees, and those are the ones I'm concerning about will be destroyed, and also concerning about the neighborhood, the natural environment, and also the established forest and the wildlife habitat. And also importantly, I feel the character of the historical neighborhood would be disrupted and also degraded, particularly at the specific turn in the road where there are a series of very old homes on very large lots. So that's the street I'm talking about in the photo is the South Bend Road, which is pretty, heavy traffic during the daytime because there's lots of people using that street. And then also wondering, based on the Baltimore has a forest conservation law, which in addition to the CHAP regulations, the developer also need to have a forest conservation plan to actually to save the specific trees and adjusting the site layouts to increase the mitigations, particularly the trees in the historical district areas. And then some of the trees are also classified as the specimen trees because they are has the diameter over 20 inches large. And so under the Baltimore City Forest Conservation Act, these specimens are also protected and require a municipal permit for removal. And also wondering, the current developer has ever hired a landscape architect to actually assess the current plan, whether fitting the historical features of our neighborhood, and also the surrounding homes as the Chapter 2 and the Chapter 4 of the CHAP regulations. And also concerning about the drainage being affected in my property, because if you can see the pictures, my property is on the lower and is on the high end, and I think this will be. Is there any planning to, for example, building a retaining wall to contain the runoff from the new house to my current properties? And particularly I'm concerning is once you remove those trees, because they do actually have some degree of the protection of the runoff. So this will be getting even worse. So the first project was reviewed at the CHAP meetings on June the 10th, 2025 in this room, and I was remotely joined. If I remember correctly, at that time, so this lot 2 is totally new for this plan. Originally, it wasn't there. But then on the June meetings, the recommendation from the CHAP committee is actually asking them to reduce the number from 7 to 5, including not actually putting this lot 2. However, on the following meeting on August 12, 2025, I also remotely joined the meeting, but the developer didn't address these recommendations. And the committee member on the August meeting didn't actually address why the June recommendation was not followed and approved the original plan to add the 7 new lots back. So my overall, I think Mount Washington is not defined by a single architecture style, but rather by a rich collection of residential forms, landscape, and also historical surroundings. Thank you for your attention.
Sean, thank you, sir. He takes to our recommendation page. We do not have any more. Do we have any public testimony online? No? Sir?
Can I say?
I just didn't know if we noted for the record that Commissioner Powell recused herself from this discussion.
I don't believe we did.
Or I believe that's what happened.
I did in the minutes.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. You're good.
Just one question.
I'll give you 10 seconds.
Yeah, so I have actually also have the property owner living on the 5607 Y Road lands, which also have the abutting property with the current existing house. He also submitted some concerns, but I'm not sure whether you.
You can just pass it to us, or we'll read it. If you have it written down, just give it to us.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you. Commissioners, before we make a decision, want to deliberate amongst each other. First, let me say this first. Hold on one second. Hold on.
Commissioners.
Yes, sir.
You do have a written, printed out copy of Ms. Randy Wagner's testimony that was
Yes.
submitted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The first thing I want to raise, Mr. Sean did share something that gave me pause where and maybe the team can share this, can help me with this, with the house, with the trees that were in the middle of the picture that he shared. If there's a wall, could there be a wall being created, or has there been consideration made that if there is construction there and if there is rain runoff, will it affect his property? Because I have seen that happen at developments through my lifetime. So I just wanted to raise that.
It's a good question. Thank you for raising that. One of the things that we've worked on extensively in this project is stormwater management. We've heard these comments over and over again. There's clearly an existing issue here. And in the site plans that I handed up a minute ago, there is a grading plan that shows, exactly what's going to be occurring during construction. We're going to have to install stormwater mitigation devices, permanent facilities and interim facilities during construction to prevent runoff onto the adjacent properties. We, in compliance with the Baltimore City stormwater regulations, are obligated not to make the existing condition worse for any of the neighbors. We don't know that we can necessarily cure all of the existing problems that are there already, but we can make sure it doesn't get any worse than it currently is.
If this is approved, will you all be able to reach out to families such as Mr. Johnson and show them, hey, if we build, this is what we will do to make sure that water irrigation or runoff won't affect your home?
Yeah, certainly. I don't think that's a problem at all. We'll have to install, and again, I'm just the lawyer, not the civil engineer, but I know we will have to install certain, silt fences and measures to ensure that while we're doing the construction, it won't run off into the neighboring property.
Cool, thank you.
So we're happy to share that information.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Just a quick question.
Yep.
Has the developer reached out to that neighbor and talked to that neighbor? I mean, that neighbor's been very vocal in the past.
They've participated in the meetings and, we have been in touch with everybody.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Lauren, this question may be for you. If this project is approved, I guess there is coordination between, developer and the staff on the staff level. Like, what does that coordination look like? And I guess I heard it's mostly just recommendations, and I guess they don't necessarily have to follow it, but then where does that partnership, that back and forth looks like after, post?
Yeah, great question, Councilmember. And essentially, CHAP has review and approval or denial authority. So what will happen is if the project receives, the sort of approval of the subdivision plan with final details to be reviewed and approved at staff level, what staff will do is work with the developer on getting all those final materials, getting the landscape plan, getting those, nitty-gritty details about the materials, lighting, fixtures, all of those things. Once we receive that information, we will then also share it with the neighborhood, with the Architectural Review Committee, with the Neighborhood Association for their input and comments as well. And then once we have everything, we will draft an approval for the project that goes into the details on everything that's being submitted.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Yep.
And along those lines, I guess, what's a little confusing is that this is final review of the subdivision plan, but there seems to be yet another stage of approval to come in the future, right? As you just described,
Yeah,
with all
just
that
for
detail.
Exactly, just for the final details of, again, sort of the building and landscape, the final details on those, those are sort of 100% level plans. They're not at this stage right now for the subdivision. And so we need to sort of,
But there's a possibility that we could decide today that the project at that further level of development comes before the commission?
The commission
potentially do?
could make that decision. I think typically when staff feels comfortable with the design of a project and, sort of the, intentions of the project, staff typically recommends approval at staff level just because it is so much easier for, time, energy on the part of the applicant and frankly on the part of staff to complete those final nitty-gritty reviews just collaboratively, so.
Quick question. It's kind of in relation to what everybody's been discussing. I in the past, and I don't know, please educate me too, like in the past, we've had an approval and then of a certain conceptual design or certain design to a certain extent, and then it's going to be passed on to staff for final review, and then we really don't see it ever again. So, I know we just assume and we trust that, staff's taking care of it, they're going to do their thing and whatever, and this is sort of the similar case. And in particulars, in the past, I know that we've gotten to a point where, let's say just a small project comes, even if it's like a storefront in the middle of the city, And we have been very critical about fascias and stuff like, like I think what Mr. Neiman has talked about before. And in this particular case, we're not getting into that detail. I think even in those past experiences, we've found ourselves at a point where we are even crossing the line too much and more like getting too many comments into the nitty gritty of the actual design too. So that being said, I'm just saying that we're at kind of in a place where we're not looking at that particular detail because there's 7 houses, they're all different, and we're not getting into that detail. Whereas in the other particular case, we have gotten in that detail in this table, in this room, even to the point of extremity. So that's my. I don't have really an answer of anything. I have a question to the group. Is like, what does everybody think about that? Like we have gotten to a level of scrutiny on a facade, and then again, pushing the envelope of extremity of that. And then here we are with 7 houses that we're looking at overall. We're looking at basically concept level plan elevations, if you agree or disagree. And we're not getting into that detail, and we're providing a final approval. So my question is, first I want to hear everybody's comment on that, about what they think about that. And the other thing is, back to the other question is that, if we're just approving a site design or a concept, a subdivision plan, then it seems like that's less of an issue, generally speaking, and that really this thing could come back for final design of the actual houses with more detail to the commission. I guess I don't really have a question. There's talking points there, and I just want to know what everybody's thoughts are before I make a decision. So.
Peter, I see your hand up.
I mean, to your point, I think we did get into a little bit of the nitty-gritty with this. Like, it was based on our recommendations that porches were enlarged, foundation materials were changed, windows were added, garages were moved. So, yeah, maybe we're not looking at the specific profile of each trim. I don't think that we would elsewhere either.
I don't know that we've ever really done that, frankly.
Right,
Like,
yeah.
looked at the profile and the exact.
Yeah, and sometimes maybe we'll get into that if it is a historic storefront where we're matching a specific material. But in new construction, I think we've done a good job at pointing them into an acceptable direction. I appreciate that they've made those alterations. I personally would be comfortable with turning it over to staff to work out those kind of nitty-gritty things with the ARC and neighbors. But I don't know that it would change my vote to see it again later on.
So this project, just like most projects, is going through site plan review as well as UDAP. And, and to Josh's point, I know UDAP usually looks at that level of detail, and they ask for all of the materials. Do we just do the same thing? I mean, we're all under the city, right? And I mean, everybody has to approve the permit. Shouldn't there be just one department or one process that reviews that? Or does everyone have to review the same thing over and over again? And then going back to site plan, I am really surprised that what we've seen was able to go through site plan without looking at the grading and the impact of getting rid of so much vegetation. But we're looking at that now. So I'm just kind of, there's too much of the same thing multiple times, and then everyone has conflicting opinions. It becomes a challenge. As a developer, it becomes a challenge because you got different departments and different reviews that are contradictory to each other, and then we're all kind of doing the same thing. I don't know if that's a question or a comment or.
Yeah, and I'm happy to respond to that. This commission did review this at concept level a year ago. Since that time, the plans were refined, and the details regarding, the stormwater management, regarding the grading, regarding, the forest conservation, all those details that are necessary for review and approval at SPRC were were more fully developed to then be brought to the site plan review committee. So, we saw it in an earlier iteration, provided our comments, and then that fit into the overall development process. So it is coming back to us after having been through all those additional steps, right? So we saw it at the beginning, we're sort of seeing it towards the end of the subdivision process. So yes, I will say it is iterative. Our goal is to, because we do have regulatory, review process, to see the things that are important to this commission early to help inform the overall process. And then, again, work collaboratively with our colleagues and other agencies. If there are conflicts for their regulatory review, our regulatory review, we figure it out. But that has not been an issue in this case. I know the developer has worked very hard on figuring out all those different things. There were a lot, very complex project. So yes, I will say that it is iterative, but the goal is not to make it, is for the process to be as streamlined as possible. And we, at least in CHAP, try very hard to ensure that we are, being collaborative and being, good communicators about what we need and about the other steps required for a process.
That's a question. So looking at the recommendation, and I have all kind of thoughts and comments, but the what's before us is approval of the subdivision plan with final details. So my question for you all is from the staff perspective of what you've discussed, what parts of the final details that you're approving are standing out most?
Well, because, there's subdivision plan details and there are architectural details. And they're not
Right,
necessarily the same thing.
So do we just approve the subdivision and then each lot has to come back, or is it all done? Because previously, when there's been multiples, we had to do it per lot.
Well, I am with Commissioner Woods because what would be the final details of the subdivision? When Mr. Sean raised the whole water irrigation piece, is that a final part of a detail? Based on what Commissioner Capel said, there probably is another portion of this where we're looking at facades and all that piece, but I'm not clear as to what else are the additional details.
And maybe I can add a little color of my thoughts is the reason I asked Mr. Neiman the question that I asked from the community perspective. There's a lot of compromise that has happened on this project, and we know that. And, I think one of the big wins was the continuous sidewalk. I know that was a huge point of, conversation, really on the stormwater side. And, those are big things. Those are things that you just don't pick up and move, right? So those are things. There are comments and questions around fenestrations. That's not something at this level that I don't suspect is going to move, right? So the windows are where they are. We haven't seen the floor plans, either. So I think there's merit, to the comments that you've given. But when I think about those things, I really kind of layer them. Which things on the project are where they are. They're not really going to move. And it's nothing about building color or trim type. You're not shifting a window, and, we don't have dimensions on the window. So some of those things, I think there's credibility to those comments. But from the staff perspective, when you all reviewed it to kind of come up with this recommendation, were the concerns living with some of the broader comments, like you still think there's some pieces that need to be moved? Or was it living with house color or trim type, just trying to dig into you all's brain a little bit.
And I'm going to defer to Eddie Leon, the staff for the project, who did complete the review.
Okay, so the review was conducted in accordance of the reviewing of the subdivision as a whole. Now, as process usually occurs, the builder has all these different functions that they have to do: the soil conservation, they have to do the forestry, they have to do the stream conservation, they have to do all these major issues. And then, because the plan is to sell by request for each house then has to come individually for permitting and review. So there is a second dig at the project, essentially, for the reviewers to analyze the individual properties as they come in for construction. So while we have a general good idea of the form and the general layout of everything, sometimes there may be changes to what is coming in for permitting because someone wants the closet somewhere else. Someone wants to move the kitchen internally somewhere else. We don't have those, as Mr. Neiman pointed out. those details of what is the floor plans of these buildings. So
You're saying CHAP staff doesn't even have a floor plan?
we don't have those particular details. But in general, we know what the house will look like from the exterior and how those, the fenestration, the doorways, the windows, the porches are laid out and what they're doing. But we don't know more specifically the why of the interior to relate to the exterior.
And I'm just going off of past hearings we've had through the years. I've seen we've had drawings where we've seen, you know, the levels, first level, second level, third level, looking down like Superman. So I just want to ask, like, could that be one of the final details, or is that separate? I'm sorry, we're voting on subdivision, but to, you know, interior, is that something else we'd have to?
Well, we won't.
I mean, we don't naturally do that, but
Yeah.
to the point of Mr. Newman and Mr. Sean saying we would like to see more. If that more was given, is that something where the architects share with the
I believe
community?
in the past, commission in my 30-some years have given blanket approval for something, but then requested as the individual buildings come in for permitting, they might request to look at those individual buildings in more detail.
I think,
But still, overall, the project is a go in its general form.
Go ahead.
even though we don't have the floor plans, which I don't know is a requirement really for us to be able to review or for the community, frankly, I think that we understand, we can assume that the fenestration and the appearance of the exterior of the building is driven by the plan. And what we can see, because we have the elevations and we have the renderings, is that, a certain level of, there's still on the side and rear facades, misalignment of openings that is indicative of a floor plan-driven design. And this is the one thing that distinguishes typically developer-built buildings from architect-designed buildings, and something that degrades the quality and perception of these buildings. So I think that to state here that, as Tom Liebel put in his letter and as other people have mentioned, that the fenestration, whether there are more or fewer openings than shown now, that where the openings are occurring and how they're arranged could use more thought so that it looks more in keeping with the type of architectural design that the higher quality houses in the neighborhood have.
Thank you.
Just a question again. Sorry, and I apologize if I'm being redundant here, but is this under one permit number right now through review?
Currently, there is, I'm going to look and ask, there is no permit submitted.
No permit.
There's no current permit.
So in essence, like in difference in what other projects we've had, that there are permitted projects that come through for review here. We're doing a global review through the departments to review the site plan of the subdivision. Once that's done, and then subdivision's approved and that moves on,
Right.
they will come back 7 times, or they might come out with a grouping of 7, and they will come back to CHAP.
Exactly, because
So-
each address will have, because it's going to be subdivided, they're going to have their own parcels,
Right, and
and
that's
each
gonna trigger
address.
commission, that's gonna, so I guess my point, is it, maybe we're just drawing the focus in the wrong place. Not necessarily, I'm just saying that we definitely needed context, but predominantly we should be looking for the subdivision approval and making sure that is where it needs to be. And then it's good that we've had initial conversations about the projects. We know that what they're kind of generally look like, but they're going to be coming back for final details anyways.
I think that's a question, right? Because I know that I have worked on a few other projects that have been subdivisions, and, it's been a subdivision, and then there were 30 new houses. And from a process standpoint, the commission did not review each of the 30 new townhouses that were built on the property. That, that they were reviewed and approved in the context of, a final design review. But that, when the permits were submitted for the construction of each of those properties, that then did not come back to the commission for each individual built.
Did they come back to CHAP staff?
They did come back to CHAP staff. And then essentially what we did is we confirmed that the plans submitted for permits aligned with the final review that we had completed for our design review process. So it's like, we review the design, we review sort of the final, and then there may be, there are always,
No, I understand.
Yeah, there are always those final changes. And so then we review what's submitted for permits and confirm that it matches or is, close enough to in spirit, isn't wildly different from what had been approved by the commission.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
No, hold on. When we're in deliberation, it's done. If your question's asked of you, then you can come up. But when we deliberate, no more public comment.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm just thinking back to an example that we dealt with last year where there were 2 infill houses being done. And we saw those as, we approved them as 2 separate approvals on 2 separate lots. And I'm sure there might be some nuances that are different. But I think that's the overall question for me as well, whether they're coming back or not. So exactly what are we approving?
I believe, Commissioner, that was the Sequoia houses in Ashburton that we reviewed. And that was about 4 years ago.
Has it really been that long?
It has been that long.
Wow.
But to your point, though, we scrutinized those.
And we overdid it.
We overdid it.
realized that we had
That's
overstepped.
exactly right. That's my.
Yeah, I mean, not only had we kind of overstepped in that instance, but as Nicole was getting at, there's redundancy here that we don't want to burden the project with. So understanding what our purview is important.
And I think it's a good point by Commissioner Morrow about that it was, it's new construction. It wasn't like historic, restoration, preservation. It was new construction. So that's a good point to make. It's all new construction.
I have actually a question for the developer.
Well,
Or it may be.
I know, I'm not sure what either.
All right, he might be, Monroe might still be in the sky. Right.
Whoever can answer. So
Yeah.
really, it's a question about
still here.
timeline.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so you had approval, you said last week from the planning commission for subdivision. So how far are you all in, doing your construction documents? And what's the plan as soon as recordation and ATP to just like literally go?
I'm going to let Mr. Monroe answer that, but before he does, in terms of process, 'cause I've heard a lot of discussion about what the process is and what the commission is being asked to approve today. Part of the subdivision requirements include, as I know you know, include final design approval of the buildings. And so it is not just the subdivision plan that the commission is being asked to approve today. It is the design of the buildings, subject to, as CHAP staff is recommending, final details to being worked out at the staff level. And and Mr. Neiman can speak for himself, but I don't even think the community is asking that each individual house would come back to the commission for further approval. I think the goal would be that they would all be approved, final design approval of the houses at one time. And then, whether it's today with the details to be worked out at the staff level or at, the next hearing with more information. But Scooter, if you're still there online, are you able to comment on the timing for permits?
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. And Caroline, I'm just going to ask the question and make sure I'm clear too. I know there's a lot of unclarity here, but once we're approved here at the CHAP commission level or further down the line with details noted by staff, we still have to get a building permit on every house. So we may build all of these houses all at one time. We may build them one at a time, but we don't get to just go start construction. The plans need to be reviewed, and I believe CHAP staff looks at the final building plans and make sure that it adheres to the CHAP guidelines and the recommendations that come out of this meeting. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So I just wanted to clarify that one piece. It's not like we approve this here today and then no one else ever sees it again. And then to answer the question about about where we are in the building plans, we're a small developer. This is a meaningful project for me, and we've been trying to approach this one step at a time because there's so many complicated layers that it doesn't make sense for us to go through 100% full design of everything, and then this changes or that changes, or SPRC says this or CHAP says that, and then we need to go make changes. So in order to be kind of economical and prudent about it, we're doing one step at a time. So we have conceptual level drawings at this point. Once we get approval and feel like we understand that the project is on track and it's moving forward, then we'll go to final design on the site side and final design on the architectural side. So that's a long-winded way of saying we haven't started that yet. But the drawings that you see today from a conceptual level is what we will build, and then further details will be refined as to the construction and structural engineering of the houses and all of that, et cetera.
All right.
I have a follow-up question to that. So just because I know different developers work differently. So as the developer, you're building the house and then selling the house, as opposed to you have a client that you're building the house for who might want to change everything.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay.
So our business model and plan for this site is to build the houses and we call them build them on spec.
On spec, yeah.
So we don't necessarily kind of advertise a house and say, hey, Harry and Sue homeowner comes along and decides what they're going to pick out and everything. What we do is we deliver a house to the market and then let them come along and buy it after the fact. So that's the business plan, as it sits today. I'm not going to say that's set in stone and will never change, because you never know what's going to happen, but that is our plan.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Thank you both.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, from my perspective, whenever we're ready to vote, I am comfortable with what the developer said. I do trust the staff, given where they are in the process. The major pieces aren't going to move, I don't think at this point, but based on what you've said, that's not really where your concerns live. If that was where your concerns live, I might, say something different. But, I do think this project has been a lot of compromise, a lot of give and take along the way. And there have been a lot of big gives, to get to this point. And I trust that CHAP staff will work, honestly with the community and with the developer to figure out what those final details would be or should be.
Awesome.
Okay, so now we're settling down on the buildings, back to the trees. So I want to address, I don't recall the name of the gentleman who spoke earlier, but I want to
Sean,
address,
yeah.
thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, I want to address those concerns about the specimen trees. So, we got handed these plans hot off the presses, and so I don't think anybody else has seen these. So I just want to let you know that there is a landscape plan in here, and there's also a forest conservation plan. And on here, they do include a specimen tree mitigation chart. And so they've been going through.
I counted, it looks like there's about 22 specimens.
Yeah, so they list everything and like the tree inches. So they go through they list the trees that will be impacted and the mitigation rates. And they are proposing the required number of trees without having to go the fee in lieu route, which can often be a challenge in a lot of projects. Like if you're taking away a lot of trees, can you fit and shoehorn enough substantially large enough trees? So granted, we're not going to be planting 20-inch trees, but I think a lot of the trees are like 3-inch caliber, and that's on the larger side of what generally does get installed. So I appreciate you can only respond to what you've seen and you haven't seen it, but it does look like they have taken the attention to survey their trees, note their condition and size and characteristics. Quite a few trees are going away, but they are putting back a lot of trees. So I just want to note that it looks like they are addressing those level of concerns and abiding by the requirements.
Good, good. Thank you, thank you. Once we're in deliberation, you can't, unless someone's called upon you to come up and speak. Okay.
Since we just got handed those today, I'm guessing also the neighborhood ARC has not set or seen them. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So is that something that can be shared with the neighborhood as well for responding to?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Commissioners, anything else? Seeing none, recommendation. CHAP staff recommends approval of the subdivision plan with final details to be reviewed and approved at staff level. Do I have a motion to approve the recommendation?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstain? Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next on our list, 20 West Cross Street, Sharp-Leadenhall Historic District. Request demolition hearing 1, determination of architectural significance. The applicant is Chase Hoffberger and the staff is Mr. Tyreek.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. Good evening, residents of Baltimore. All right. Afternoon. So this is 20 West Cross Street, demolition hearing 1, determination of architectural integrity in the Sharp-Leadenhall Historic District. The address is, of course, 20 West Cross Street. Our applicant is Chase Hoffberger, and the staff is myself, Tyreek Charlouse. Next slide. The warehouse structure at 20 West Cross Street is located on the southeastern side of the local historic district. It is located on the north side of Cross Street, directly east of the intersection with Race Street. Next slide. It is located on the north side of Cross Street, directly east of the intersection with Race Street. There is a 3-foot wide walking alley to the east. The rear lot abuts a service parking lot. The building on the north side of this block are predominantly 2- and 3-story row homes. Immediately to the east of this property, there is a 1-story commercial building. The south side of the street is not within the local historic district and has a 3-story brick industrial building and a gas station. Next slide. The warehouse is located at the corner of the intersection of Cross Street, a primary street, and Race Street and Alley Street. The building itself is a 2-story L-shaped brick building with a low-sloped roof that was constructed in several phases and has elevations on Cross Street and Race Street. There is also a parking lot on site that is enclosed by a tall concrete wall that fronts on both Cross and Race Streets. Thank you. Next slide. The primary elevation is on Cross Street. It is a 2-story facade comprised of red brick laid in common bond. The facade is organized in 3 irregular bays topped with a projecting stepped central parapet with simple projecting brick pilasters at the edges of the parapet. The simple cornice is finished with brick roll-lock above. Immediately below the cornice, there is a historic painting sign reading Hanover Metal Company in black and white that runs along the full width of the facade. At the first floor, the left bay has a large vehicular opening with the metal roll-up door and a facade and a faded painted sign that advertises buyers of scrap metals, copper, brass, lead, babbitt, solder, and tin. The middle bay includes a simple pedestrian door opening with a commercial-style metal door, which is a more recent alteration based on the modern brick surrounding this opening. The right bay contains a wide pedestrian opening leading to an alcove that has been covered with a custom wood double door. The upper story has 5 window openings. The 2 of the leftmost openings still have their historic fixed metal sashes. The other window openings have newer metal slider windows. Above the first floor of the middle and right bays, there is a painted brick sign band reading cyanide, marble, and granite. Next slide. The brick west wall of the main block, which historically was a party wall, extends approximately 65 feet from Cross Street before meeting the south wall of the L addition, which features windows on the second floor. The elevation faces Race Street and has a 1.5-story brick wall with no detailing. The lower level has a large vehicular entrance filled with CMU block with a heavy steel lintel above. The north wall of the building abuts a surface parking lot and has windows on the upper floors. Next slide. Next slide. And the next slide. All right, moving on to the background. Next slide. In 2010, Sharp-Leadenhall, the Sharp-Leadenhall Historic District was created, and this property was within the district. There has been no applications for this property since the district's designation. In March 2025, the property was registered as a vacant building. In June 2025, the current property owners purchased the property. In August 2025, the property was re-inspected by DACD, and a vacant building notice was reissued to the new property owners. Next slide. Bear with me, commissioners. I am trying to move quickly in respect of your time. All right, moving on to the proposal. The applicant proposes to demolish the structure. Next slide. All right. Next slide again. Thank you. Previous slide, I'm sorry. Staff applied Section 3.6 Demolition Procedures of the Baltimore City Historic Preservation Guide Rules and Regulations, specifically Demolition Hearing 1, Determination of Architectural Significance. A determination regarding the significance of the structure will be made prior to considering details of the demolition and hardship application and any projects for new construction on the site. Doing so allows the commission to determine the importance of the structure solely on architectural and historical criteria. If a structure does not meet the criteria or contribute to the historic district of a local historic character of a local district, then an authorization to proceed for demolition shall be issued. Next slide. All right. Thank you. If a structure does not meet the criteria or contribute to the historic character of a local district, then authorization to proceed for demolition will be issued. All right, next slide. Now for the historical findings of the building and the site. Next slide. Development of the Sharp-Leadenhall district neighborhood happened mostly during the 1840s and the 1850s, but there are some structures that were constructed later, like this property. The building at 20 West Cross Street grew over the early 20th century, reaching its current footprint by the 1950s. In 1890, the core of what is today 20 West Cross Street was a 2-story brick junk warehouse with several frame outbuildings in the rear of the lot, with the address of 22 West Cross Street. The rest of the unit block of West Cross Street was comprised of 2.5-story row homes. Next up. While the junk warehouse expanded its business into adjacent row homes at 24 West Cross Street by 1901 and maintained this extension by expansion in 1914 as shown in the Sanborn Fire Insurance maps, there were no other major alterations that led to the building that exists today. Next slide. The building that exists today was built for the Hanover Metal Company, which was founded in 1917 by Morris Epstein, a Jewish immigrant from Poland who started out in the scrap metal business upon his arrival in Baltimore. Between 1917 and about 1991, the Hanover Metal Company grew to include a total of 3 businesses at the site: Hanover Iron and Metal Company, Hanover Rubber and Metal Company, and Plastic Dye and Color Company. To accommodate the business's growing footprints, Epstein acquired adjacent parcels on West Cross Street and Ray Street. The 1950 Sanborn map shows major additions to the warehouse's footprint, achieving the form of the building that exists today. The warehouse expanded to include the parcels at 24 and 26 West Cross Street and 1027 and 1029 Ray Street. It is likely that the row houses were demolished to accommodate the warehouse expansion and that the facade on Cross Street dates to this warehouse expansion. Next slide. The transition of the property's use from junk stores to a variety of junk stores to a variety of industrial uses was made possible by the city's zoning ordinances. Originally adopted in 1923 and twice amended, the final version of the ordinance, adopted in 1931, zoned the streets between Ray Street and Light Street as industrial and second commercial. Prior to the zoning changes, Sharp-Leadenhall was a thriving working-class neighborhood of predominantly Black and immigrant, mostly German residents. While Sharp-Leadenhall, like many other neighborhoods in Baltimore, had a mix of residential, commercial, industrial uses in the 19th century, the neighborhood became increasingly industrial in nature in the 20th century. The Epstein family and their business were a part of this larger historical trend, evidenced by changes in the structure over the time from 1917 to 1953. And what you're seeing on this screen today, right now, on the left is a Sun article that speaks to the multiple uses that have grown within the footprint of 20 West Cross Street. It is there was a 4-alarm fire that happened back in the 50s, right before the Sanborn maps actually released, and it speaks to the 3 businesses that were on the site. And the right article shows the Hanover Metal Company advertising recycling services at their site in 1991, so the business was still in operation at that moment. Next slide. All right, what's being shown here is another Baltimore Sun article on basically the city commission asking for bids on scrap metal to be picked up from different junk sites from across the city. 20% of those proceeds were then donated to support the war effort, World War II war effort at the moment. So in October 1942, the Baltimore City commissioned 6 scrap businesses from around the city to collect and process salvage materials from scrap yards located at 6 different locations within the city. The scrap was not meant to be resold and could be only used as scrap metal. Baltimore City then used 20% of the proceeds from selling scrap to Hanover Metal Company to donate to the USO, the Army, and Navy Relief Associations, and the Red Cross. Next slide, thank you. The row houses at 28, 30, 32, and 34 West Cross Streets were demolished sometime after 1950, and the lots are now a surface parking lot used for the warehouse. All of these previously mentioned parcels were consolidated into one parcel with the address of 20 West Cross Street sometime after 1950. What's being shown on the screen is a 1963 plat of 20 West Cross Street, which is still being used today via code map. Next slide. All right, and what's being shown on the screen now is an obituary for Morris Epstein, the founder and long-term manager of Hanover Metal Company. According to Epstein's 1963 obituary, Epstein managed the business until the last few years and was a member of the Workmen's Circle, a Jewish beneficial organization. Hanover Metal Company was still in operation in 1991 based on an ad in the Baltimore Sun showing that the business had survived 74 years. Sometime after 1991, the warehouse gained a new industrial commercial use housing the Cyanide Marble and Granite Company. The business seemed to operate from the early 1990s until about 2009 when Google Street View shows the building being shuttered. The warehouse remained in the Epstein family until January 2025. The building was officially designated as vacant by the Department of Housing in 2025. Next slide. Neighborhood comments. This property is in the Sharp-Leadenhall Historic District. Staff has informed the Sharp-Leadenhall Architectural Review Committee about this application. We have not received a formal response, but the Architectural Review Committee Chair is here to provide verbal testimony. Next slide. To conclude, we can move on to the analysis. Next slide. All right, what's being shown here is a bird's side of the industrial and residential uses in South Baltimore neighborhood. You can see how residential and industrial uses are in close proximity to one another. This relationship can be seen throughout South Baltimore's urban fabric and can be seen in the Sharp-Leadenhall neighborhood as well. All right, so the property at 20 West Cross Street is significant under Criterion 1 for its association with broad patterns of Baltimore's industrial development and the transformation of the Sharp-Leadenhall neighborhood during the 20th century. Originally developed as a working-class residential community populated by African American and immigrant residents, Sharp-Leadenhall experienced increasing industrial and commercial expansion during the early 20th century, particularly following zoning changes that encourage industrial uses within formerly residential blocks. The conversion and expansion of 20 West Cross Street reflects this neighborhood-wide transition and illustrates the changing land use patterns that reshaped the community's historic character. Stay on that slide. Previous slide, thank you. What's being shown here? In this image, you can see a similar industrial space with a large open area at the first floor, similar to 20 West Cross Street. There's a lack of walls, supports, or partitions, which is similar to the existing conditions of 20 West Cross Street. I also included these two images because what's being shown in this image is final paint products being produced in the same light manufacturing context. You can stay on this slide. From approximately 1917 through the late 20th century, the property served as the Hanover Metal Company and related businesses founded by Polish immigrant Morris Epstein. Through the acquisition of adjacent parcels and the expansion of scrap processing, metal, rubber, and plastic operations, the site became part of Baltimore's industrial economy and recycling industry. The company's participation in Baltimore's World War II scrap collection program demonstrates the role of local industries in supporting wartime resource conservation and production efforts. Next slide. The property is also significant under what's being shown here on the left is the site, and then on the right is another example. This is in Fells Point, however, of an example of an industrial vernacular architectural building that still exists today. So, the property is also significant under Criterion 3 as a representative example of vernacular industrial architecture. The warehouse embodies previous slide. The warehouse embodies the utilitarian design, materials, and incremental growth patterns characteristic of small-scale industrial enterprises operating within established urban neighborhoods. Its evolution, documented through successive Sanborn maps, reflects both the growth of the Hanover Metal Company and the broader industrial infill that occurred throughout Sharp-Leadenhall during the first half of the 20th century. As one of the surviving industrial buildings associated with this period of the neighborhood transformation, 20 West Cross Street remains an important physical reminder of the community's transition to a mixed residential, second commercial industrial district. Next slide. Moving on to CHAP's recommendation, final slide. Staff recommends a determination that the building does contribute to the historic district of Sharp-Leadenhall and may not be demolished. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you. Any questions for me, commissioners?
Yeah, I just want to note that it's a Demo 1 hearing, so we're here to talk about architectural significance. And so integrity is shown on the slide as the title, but that's not what the demo one hearing is actually here to address.
That's
So
an oversight.
yeah, no. I just want to make that clear because clearly there are many pictures in the packet that relate to integrity, and I'm sure we will have lots of fun discussing them at a demo 2 hearing. Spoiler alert.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, that's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. Also, I just want to note that Chairman Spikes had to step out, so I'm sitting in temporarily until he returns. And I'm Nicole Battle. Okay. As far as testimony, I believe the owner, Chase Hoffberger, is Chase here?
Yes, and he is the applicant.
Yeah, he's the applicant.
Representing the owner. The owner is the MLMG Group, I believe.
They're here too.
I knew it.
Sorry, if you don't mind, just say your name.
Sure, thanks. Thanks for having me. My name is Chase Hoffberger. I'm here on behalf of the MLMLG Group, which owns the property. Mike Knopfel is one of the partners in the group. And we can both answer any questions you have. We thank you for your time. And Ms. Langby, we certainly appreciate the distinction between integrity and significance. And should we need to go to a second hearing, we do look forward to speaking to the architectural integrity, structural integrity of the property. And we'll hold comment on that for now. I want to thank Mr. Charlius for his presentation. Awfully informative. Sometimes watching these presentations, it seems like a great job to be able to dig into such great history of these properties and learn so much, and I learned a lot too. But there were a few things that were notable to me that I just want to bring attention to. One is that the discussion about the sort of ever-changing condition of this property. The land was consolidated, buildings, row houses were demolished, different pieces of this property of this structure were added on later in time. And I think that speaks to a larger issue here with this property and with this building, which is that it is not frozen in time, and it represents kind of a shifting landscape of the neighborhood. And so it's sort of a disservice to the building itself to ask that it remain kind of frozen in its present state simply because that is when the hearing is occurring. So I would encourage you all to think in that context a bit that this property and this building has seen many lives and many different faces. And the other is with respect to the Sharp-Leadenhall Historic District itself, and I know that Miss Betty's here to speak, and we look forward to speaking with her or to hearing from her. But the historic district itself, if you look at all the literature about the Sharp-Leadenhall Historic District, it really speaks to the residential component of the neighborhood. And this is a neighborhood that has exists as a matter of survival against these forces. And I don't mean to diminish the presence of the industrial components within this neighborhood. We're not here to suggest that they didn't exist. Certainly the building is standing. Other buildings have stood before, been knocked down, and some of them have been turned into multi-family apartment buildings that have been eyesores and other sources of trauma for the neighborhood. But this is a neighborhood that's historic designation is really rooted in its residential row house history. And we do think that in terms of architectural significance, that should play a role in your consideration. And so we do thank you for your time. We're happy to answer any questions, Mike and I, and welcome anybody else to speak as well. Thank you.
Do the commissioners have any questions for? Oh, there you go.
I was just reading in your kind of support narrative, you note that a structural report can be commissioned upon request. That it isn't needed for this meeting, but I would highly suggest having it if we go to a meeting too, and also noting that it's a structural engineer who's has experience with historic buildings.
You're noting that as someone in that capacity.
I'm just noting that because we're focusing on.
Yes, we're quite prepared to provide a structural for this building.
Okay, because you didn't note that that you already have one in process or anything. So.
No, I mean we understand the scope here. If we were approved for demolition, we would not need to invest that money. We would note that the building was recently condemned as well, but want to keep that in the next hearing, as that's the more appropriate venue.
Commissioners, are there any other questions?
Just real quick, is it appropriate for me to ask what the future redevelopment will be, or is that not a good question?
No, we are not allowed to consider that. That's,
But we can hand you a napkin note.
staff knows, but that is not pertinent to this discussion at this point.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is Joe Ho? Am I pronouncing your last name correctly? Thank you, sir.
You did it perfectly. I'm impressed. Most people struggle. You did it wonderfully.
Great. If you can just state your name.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Joseph Ho, and I'm a business owner on at 1024 South Hanover Street. The properties that are considered that 1024 South Hanover Street makes up that rear parking lot and that center automotive building in the middle of the block. And I'm also the owner of the Tire Network building on the corner of Cross and Hanover. I've been in business for nearly 30 years. Came into to that area in 1998. I've known Miss Betty for most of that time. And I'm very appreciative to the city of Baltimore and its residents for them supporting our business over the years. I did personally know Stephen Epstein, who is a descendant of the original Mr. Epstein and Mrs. Epstein that started that business near 100 or so years ago. And a couple of things that I can say. I wholeheartedly agree with the city's recommendation of preserving this building. You know, Sharp-Leadenhall is one of the oldest African-American communities in the state. We had, it started in the 1700s, and a lot of our African-American community founded churches and built buildings there and even worked in this particular building. I've seen that even personally myself up to as recent as 2010, where there were multiple businesses operating in there. Stephen Epstein was operating precious metals, and he did sublet some of the property to a marble company. You know, this is, as you've heard, late 19th century, early 20th century building, and frankly, you could never rebuild this type of architecture over again. It would be very difficult to do. So it would be terrible for us to lose it. The two oldest and most significant buildings in our community in Sharp-Leadenhall are the Baptist Church and this metals building. And the owners that now purchased the building are experienced developers who pride themselves and boast the renovation of 400 properties around the Inner Harbor specifically. So I feel as though they purchased this building. If they did it in goodwill, they did it with the full understanding that it's significant and important to the communities, and they would only do it to rehab it and make it a vital, just make it a shining star of the community. And that's what I would expect. So I hope that that's what will happen, that this building will be preserved as close to its form as it is right now. Any major development there, expansion of houses, would create all kinds of problems with traffic. It would create problems with the 6 residential properties that are there, none of whom were ever notified. Like this was all a big surprise to all of us on the block. We had no idea that there was a demolition going. This property was purchased over a year ago by experienced people, experienced businessmen who are fully aware of what they purchased. Not one penny has been put in it to preserve it over the year. It's almost been intentionally allowed to slide, and I just don't feel like anyone should be rewarded for that. I mean, I can tell you that that there are people. I've spoken with Emily Beal, who is a structural engineer and is experienced in preserving historic buildings, and Emily is a consultant with BECS. She said if anyone's serious about preserving that building, to give her a call.
Mr. Ho, you have 25 more seconds, so
Pardon me?
you have about 20 seconds.
All right, yeah, so I would say that that's the person to call, because she said this building should not be torn down, it can be saved, and she can do it. So I would say, please stick to our guns, make sure that this building is rehabbed and we preserve African-American history. Thank you all
sir.
very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions, commissioners, for Mr. Ho? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next person up, Miss Betty Brand Thomas.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Betty Bland Thomas. I'm the president of the historic Sharp-Leadenhall community. I've waited a long time to speak. I want to commend the current owners for their due diligence in reaching out to myself. I had a chance to talk with them and get an idea of what their plan is. Sharp-Leadenhall does not disapprove of improvements. We welcome improvements. Our community has historically been disinvested on. And as a result, gentrification has occurred, and many of us feel like we're being pushed out of our own historic neighborhoods. So an opportunity of having some home ownership opportunities is something that we do welcome. It would improve that corridor, which right now is a vacant building, broken up curves, and what I suspect is some illegal parking going on as well. We took the process as a community that does care about itself to invite one of the owners to come to our community meetings. This person is going through some health challenges, but he showed up. He brought enough information so everyone who was interested could get a copy. And for me, that's important. Too often, when we can get a developer to come in, they come with drawings that are so tiny. Now, I don't have my glasses on, but I think even if I did, I couldn't see it. But I thought they did the due diligence in making sure they brought enough information that everyone could have an opportunity to look at it. I explained to them, as well as the residents, we do not make our final decision at a community meeting. It will be brought back to the board and we will discuss it further. The overall census is that we do want that corridor improved, but I'm wearing two hats here, one as a community leader and one as a person who advocates for preservation. The fact that our community has been disinvested, we as a community are trying as hard as we can to improve what is left of our community and ask that all consideration be given for preservation. I think earlier when there was a talk by one of the persons who were here made mention what was happening in Canton, how they took a building that was old, warehouse type, and they were able to preserve it. So we're asking for the same opportunity, if that's possible. I'm not an architect nor an engineer. I rely a lot on CHAP to give us guidance on what's appropriate and what is not appropriate. I've had the opportunity of talking with Tariq to express my concerns for our entire community. For me, this is like a puzzle. When we lose a chip, we lose an opportunity for reinvestment. I don't want to lose any chips. I can't afford to lose any chips. I don't have that much time. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Betty? Thank you, Ms. Betty. Well, commissioners, let's have our discussion. Who will start?
Okay, no one is online to testify.
I don't really have any discussion, but would be willing to move on staff's recommendation.
Okay. All right, well, can we get a motion?
Well, before we do that, I'm just looking at the wording of the staff recommendation, how it says that it may not be demolished. And I think we'll be talking about that if we accept that the building does contribute to the historic district and has architectural significance, which I agree with, and we'll move to demo too, but I just don't know if that last phrase is necessary, considering all we're being asked to do today is determine architectural significance.
Yes.
I mean, if we said it wasn't significant, then it could be demolished, though.
This is true.
Right.
So
The proposal
we're kind of
is,
saying you can't
I
demolish
think-
it by saying it is significant And then that case has to be made to us whether or not we should move in that direction.
It may not be important, this distinction that I'm making.
Yes, Lauren, is the wording correct to include it may not be demolished?
We don't have
signed
specific adopted language, but I think that, yes, having the clarification saying that it may not be demolished, it iterates the determination that it contributes, right? If it contributes, it can't be demolished. At this stage, it will need to come back for demo hearing two,
If they want to proceed.
if they want to proceed, yes.
So I guess for clarity, do we need to change the language here? No? Okay. All right, so it's fine as is. All right. So can we get,
I would make the motion to move staff's recommendation.
I'll second it.
all right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Hearing none? Approved. Thank you, Tariq.
Okay. Last one. Can we get out of here before 5:30?
Thank you for everyone's patience.
I'm accused, I had a conflict.
Oh my God. I didn't realize you were. I was like, all of a sudden disappeared, and then finally.
No, I hope you don't say that.
Deliberating. To it.
Yeah, I have no battery left in my laptop.
Oh, do you need to plug in? I can.
No, I don't have it, I don't have a charger.
Oh.
I don't carry the weight, I'm usually not off, like, out for so long. Can we?
All right, commissioners, this is our last hearing. Tariq? Oh, sorry.
I have a son, it won't make it.
Okay, Tariq, are you ready? No worries. 930 South Charles?
It's what we do it for, you know?
Okay.
So, all right, I apologize in advance for any stumbled upon words. I am moving quickly in respect of everyone's time. So this is 930 South Charles Street. This is a concept review to construct a one-story vertical addition on a portion of a historic building and exterior alterations to the building. I should slow down. I will slow down.
Yeah, we're not going to get up and walk away, so.
You're good.
Okay. The address is 930 South Charles Street in the Federal Hill Historic District. The applicant is Angelo Manafo and CAM Construction, and the staff member is myself. Next slide. You already on the right side. Thank you. All right, so here is the project site. On the left is the vicinity map showing it in the western portion of Federal Hill, and on the right is a site map showing a close-up version of the site. Next slide. All right, here's a top-down view of the building with South Charles Street to the right. We have Hanover Street to the south, and we have Willing Street, which is the alley street, separating the surface parking lot in the building, in the site, where the arrow is. Next slide. Here we go. Across South Charles Street, there's a mixture of two with an attic and three-story row homes with a mixture of residential and commercial uses. The south elevation of the property faces the side elevation of the historic three-story commercial building across from West Hamburg Street. The north elevation faces the side elevation of a mixed-use row home across Willing Street, a one-way alley with narrow sidewalks. The rear elevation faces the rear of a three-story row homes to the west. Additionally, there is a large surface parking lot located to the west that extends all the way to South Hanover Street. This parking lot is part of this subject parcel. Next slide. My slides got messed up. Cool. Next slide. Next slide. And next slide. Cool. Back on track. Constructed in 1886, the historic portion of the property was originally developed as a corner four-story brick commercial building at the northwest corner of South Charles Street and West Hamburg Street during a period of significant industrial and commercial growth in South Baltimore. Both historic and today, the property had the address of 30 South Charles Street. Early in its history, the building housed Schoenwolf's and the Heck Furniture Store, serving the surrounding working-class neighborhoods and industrial waterfront. In the mid-1930s, the property became home to the Chauffeur's Furniture, a family-owned business that operated at the site for several generations and became a well-known commercial landmark in the neighborhood. The property reflects more than a century of commercial use and architectural change, embodying the layered development patterns that characterize South Baltimore's historic commercial districts. Next slide. Right. Following a fire in the 1950s, the principal facade of the historic commercial building was reconstructed. Throughout its period of operation, the building underwent a series of alterations and expansions. The business expanded into several adjacent row houses on both South Charles Street and West Hamburg Street. The row houses on West Hamburg Street, formerly 6, 8, and 10 West Hamburg Street, are still part of the building's complex. Today, the footprint of the parcel is approximately 0.9 acres in size and includes the entirety of the west side of South Charles Street between Willing and West Hamburg Street. The former addresses for these parcels were 914 through 930 South Charles Street, and the entire north side of the unit block of West Hamburg Street, and the lower portion of the east side of the block on South Hanover Street. In 2005, adjacent row houses on South Charles Street were demolished, and a 3-story brick addition that fills the remainder of South Charles Street block face was constructed. Next slide. The primary historic structure is a 4-story brick commercial building with Italianate and Romanesque revival influences. The principal elevations are painted brick and feature regularly spaced window openings and decorative masonry and stone detailing, including arched window surrounds, ornamental brickwork, projecting cornices, and decorative medallions. The ground floor contains historic storefronts with large openings and recessed commercial entrances. The majority of the window openings have been bricked in or have undersized replacement windows. The historic storefront cornice survives undercladding. Next slide. The rear elevation facing west is a blank masonry wall with a large painted sign advertising Chauffeur's Furniture. Most of this rear elevation is a party wall to the adjacent row homes that are part of the complex. The row houses, formerly 6, 8, and 10 West Hamburg Street, likely date to the late 19th century. The facades have been altered to serve the most recent use of the building, with large glass block window openings on the first floor and the infill or removal of pedestrian doors. Next slide. The 2005 addition to the complex is sizable, its footprint taking up the majority of the block on South Charles Street. The addition has 2 distinct facades. There is a second Empire-inspired middle bay immediately adjacent to the historic 4-story commercial building. This portion of the addition is 3 bays wide and 3 stories tall, set back from the property line by several feet and distinguished by its mansard roof clad in standing seam metal. There is also a fourth floor penthouse with a large pyramidal skylight on this portion of this addition, which is highly visible from the street. The other portion of the addition is also 3 stories in height and flanks the other side of the middle bay. This portion of the addition is 6 bays wide and draws its massing and much of its architectural detailing and patterns from the original 1886 facade. The parapet of this portion of the addition features sandstone ornamentation, including blocks engraved with the letter S. Both portions of this addition are constructed with yellow brick and yellow sandstone detailing. Next slide. The north elevation of the addition faces Willing Street and Alley Street, and it features blank window openings and is clad in stucco. Next slide. The rear of the addition faces a surface parking lot that is part of the parcel, and they are largely utilitarian. The non-historic addition is visually subordinate to the primary historic structure while contributing to the building's layered architectural evolution. The prominent building complex occupies a significant presence within the streetscape. Next slide. Moving on to the background, this is the first application for this property since the district was designated in 2017. Next slide. And moving towards the proposal, you can go to next slide. All the shiny pictures. The proposal is to construct a vertical addition on top of the sizable 2005 non-historic addition to the building and to make other exterior alterations to the building. All of this work is proposed to support the conversion of the property to residential and commercial use. Next slide. The majority of the vertical addition will be set back from the facade by approximately 5 feet, with 2 feet of that depth being the parapet. The one-story vertical addition will be flush with the north elevation facing Willing Street and Alley Street. The addition will be clad with metal siding. Next slide. And moving on to our application of guidelines, next slide. Staff applied the following sections of Chapter 1, Design Guidelines for Building Exteriors, and Chapter 2, Design Guidelines for Additions, New Construction, and Non-Contributing Building in the Baltimore City Historic Preservation Guidelines in reviewing this proposal. Will not bore you with the list that you see there, but these are all of the applicable guidelines shown on the screen. Next slide. Next slide. And we use 1.7.1 general. The majority of the project fully complies with these guidelines and can be reviewed and approved at staff level. One aspect of the proposal that doesn't fully comply with the design guidelines is the addition of the windows on the west elevations of the historic commercial building and the former row house on West Hamburg Street, shown in the dotted red box. The guidelines direct that the new openings are to be added. The guidelines direct that new window openings are to be added on a secondary elevation that cannot be seen from a public right-of-way. In this case, due to the site context, the new windows on the west elevation will be seen from the public right-of-ways of West Hamburg Street and South Hanover Street, due both to the height of the building and due to the surface parking lot on this portion of the parcel. Regardless, staff believes that the newly installed windows will be compatible with the overall character of the building and recommends approval. Next slide. Moving to 1.10.3, masonry painting. The 1886 structure has been painted yellow on all elevations, and the 2005 addition was constructed with yellow brick to be visually compatible with the historic portion of the building. The proposal intends to paint both the painted masonry of the historic portion of the building and the unpainted masonry of the addition. The stone detailing on the parapet of the addition will also be painted. Generally, the CHAP design guidelines directs that masonry that has not historically been painted in the past should not be painted. On its face, the proposal to paint the unpainted brick of the addition does not comply with this guideline. However, this guideline is generally intended to protect historic bricks from coatings that can cause damage to them. In this case, the proposal is to paint modern brick, which can better withstand coatings. Therefore, staff believes that in this case, painting the unpainted brick of the non-historic addition is approvable, provided that the paint is appropriately vapor permeable. Staff recommends approval of painting the unpainted bricks in this case. However, staff is concerned about the proposal to paint the stone due to the unknown porosity of the stone and the potential for material damage, and advises against painting it or more fully investigating the viability of painting the stone. Next slide. Moving on to 1.81, roofing and gutters. The vertical addition proposed on the non-historic addition will be visible from South Charles Street due to the 5-foot setback of the majority of the addition fronting on South Charles Street and the 0 setback on the north elevation of the building, fronting on Willing Street. The vertical addition will be highly visible from the rear due to the large surface parking lot. The applicants have advised that the constraints of the interior program prevent additional setbacks. Given that, staff recommends that the applicant explore other cladding options to minimize the visual impact of the vertical addition. Next slide. Next slide. Again, duplicate slide. right. Moving on to 1.12, signage and awnings. Generally, signage can be reviewed and approved at staff level. However, there are a few aspects of this proposal regarding signage that doesn't fully complete with the CHAP design guidelines. Next slide. The proposal calls for the addition of a marquee sign on the facade of the historic commercial building and the removal of a painted sign on the west elevation. These can be shown in red in the red dotted box. The large marquee sign is intended to replicate a historic marquee sign that was historically located on the building. While signage of this size is typically not allowable under the zoning code and require consultation with zoning staff to determine if it is viable from a zoning standpoint, staff is considering it under the CHAP guidelines, which direct that in most cases do not install large projecting signs at upper story levels of historic buildings. The guidelines also advise that historic painted signs should be preserved. On the west elevation of the historic commercial building, there is a large painted sign and advertising chauffeur's furniture. This signage will be impacted by the proposed new windows on this elevation. Staff encourages the applicants to explore what the painted sign may look like when it is impacted by the new fenestration and consider retention of the sign. These aspects of the signage proposal do not fully comply with the design guidelines. Next slide. Moving to 1.17, alterations and additions. The proposed vertical addition on the fourth floor is contemporary in design and will be located on the 2005 non-historic addition. The addition is compatible in massing, height, form, and scale to the historic structure and appropriately sits atop the 2005 addition. Also, the vertical addition will appear as a tertiary structure compared to the historic structure and therefore would meet these guidelines. Next slide. Moving to 2.1, guiding principles for new design. The fourth floor vertical addition's design is contemporary in nature, which would not match the character of the historic district, but would be appropriate for the current time, place, and use of the building, therefore meeting this guideline. The vertical addition standing seam metal with vertical patterns within its cladding material replicates the patterns found at the Second Empire's mansard roof and can be confusing the old and new, therefore not meeting this guideline. The proposal partially meets this guideline. Restate that. All right, next slide. Moving to 2.2, site design. Next, actually stay on this slide because it's at the bottom. The vertical addition will be visible from South Charles Street due to the modest setback on South Charles Street and the lack of setback on the north elevation facing Willing Street. Next slide. There we go. As noted previously, the applicants had advised that the constraints of the interior program prevent additional setbacks. Given that, staff recommends that the applicant explore other cladding options to minimize the visual impact of the vertical addition. Next slide. Moving to 2.3, scale and form. The fenestration of the vertical addition is complementary to the fenestration of the lower floors and respects the proportions of solid surfaces to voids. The floor-to-floor heights of the vertical addition are aligned with the floor-to-floor heights of the historic structure. The roof lines are also compatible with the surrounding buildings and historic structure. Also, the vertical addition does not have a heavy cornice to draw attention away from the historic cornice at the Romanesque Revival facade. The proposal meets this guideline. Next slide, moving to 2.5, roofs. The roofs are typical flat roofs. The simple cornice at the vertical addition is compatible because most buildings within the immediate vicinity have ornate Italianate cornices or modest brick cornices. The proposal meets these guidelines. Finally, moving to 2.52, materials. The proposed cladding material for the vertical addition is pack-clad vertical metal siding in an antique bronze color. Staff has approved this type of cladding on vertical additions. However, in this case, the use of this material in this context conflicts with the patterns and color of the existing mansard roof at the Second Empire addition. Due to this visual conflict in the blending of materials, the proposed cladding material does not seem compatible in texture, scale, and color with the standing seam metal at the mansard roof below. Staff urges the applicant to explore other cladding options, including both alternative colors of this product or other materials. The proposal partially meets these guidelines. Next slide. All right. All right, so this property is within the Federal Hill Historic District. Thus, staff informed the Federal Hill Architectural Review Committee about this application, and staff is waiting a formal response to this proposal. Next slide. To conclude, we can move on to our analysis. You can leave this slide up. All right. The proposed rehabilitation and adaptive reuse project generally balance preservation of the historic resource with the functional requirements of mixed-use development. The fourth floor vertical addition is appropriately subordinate in scale. However, the modest setbacks of the vertical addition increase the visibility of the addition from South Charles Street. Additionally, the proposed cladding of the vertical addition visually references the mansard roof of the 2005 addition. Staff advises that the applicant explore alternatives for the cladding of the vertical addition. A few aspects of the proposal do not fully comply with the design guidelines. Painting masonry is typically not approvable, but staff believes that painting the brick of the non-historic addition is acceptable in this case because the modern brick is less likely to be harmed by paint. However, staff is concerned about the proposed painting of the stone due to the unknown porosity of the stone and the potential for material damage, and advises that the applicant avoid painting the stone or more fully investigate the viability of painting the stone. Another aspect that does not fully meet the design guidelines is the proposed addition of the marquee sign on the facade of the historic commercial building, which is intended to replicate a historic marquee sign that is historically located on the building. The guidelines direct that in most cases do not install large projecting signs at upper story levels of historic buildings. However, there is a historic precedent for this sign. Staff advises that the applicant first speak with the zoning staff to determine if it is viable from a zoning standpoint, and staff will defer a final recommendation at that time. The proposal will also add windows on the west elevation of the historic building. While these new windows openings can be seen from the public right-of-way, staff believes that the new window openings will be compatible with the overall character of the building and recommend approval. However, some of the new windows on the west elevation of the historic commercial building will be installed in the same location as a painted sign that advertises the furniture store. The guidelines advise retaining historic painted signs, and staff encourages that the applicant explore what the painted sign may look like when it is impacted by the new fenestration, and consider retention of the sign. Next slide. All right, with all that being said, we can go to the next slide in our recommendation. Staff recommends concept approval of the proposal with further recommendations. Evaluate the relationship between the proposed rear window installations and the historic chauffeur's furniture painted sign to minimize the impacts to the historic feature. 2, avoid painting the unpainted stone details on the 2005 edition or more fully investigate the viability of painting the stone. 3, explore cladding options including both alternate colors of this product or other materials for the vertical addition that create a clearer distinction between the contemporary vertical addition and the existing mansard roof on the 2005 edition. And final details to return to staff for review and approval. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Tariq. Commissioners, do we have any questions for Tariq before we bring the applicant up? All right, hearing none.
Sorry. Just point of clarification, I guess having never walked right next to the building, the contemporary edition, the bricks are colored bricks. It's not existing painted.
Yes, yes, all of the
I did
bricks
not
are
realize that.
are colored brick. Yes, the 2005 edition drew a lot of its architectural detailing from the historic building, including its paint selection, well, brick color selection.
Just one question. You're being specific about recommendations. The signage piece is not there. Do you want to add that to that, or?
We stated in the analysis that staff advises that the applicant should first speak with zoning staff to determine if it is viable from a zoning standpoint, and staff at that point will defer a final recommendation at that time. That's in the analysis, so we left that out. We recommend that they engage with zoning first.
Okay.
Because it's not allowed under zoning.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any additional questions? All right, so Joe Woolman, are you representing the applicant today?
Thank you. Good afternoon, almost evening, commissioners. I'm Joe Woolman from Silverman Thompson, represent the applicant and the owner for this exciting project in my neighborhood. I happen to live in this neighborhood, so I'm thrilled about this project. I'd like to think we've got a relatively easy one after two relatively difficult ones here to end your agenda. We're in complete agreement with the staff regarding the recommendations. We look forward to working with them on the points that they've raised here in the recommendation. The design team is here. There's representatives from the ownership here if you have questions for them, but we look forward to continuing along the same path that we're on at this point.
Thank you. So we do have the architect here as well. Do we want to have the architect come up? Is it Mike Burton?
Yep.
Hi, Mike Burton, architect from Urban Design Group. Any questions? I mean, we're going to work with staff. We've been working with them very diligently, and the process is going well, so.
And I don't know, we're just curious, you know how long it's been vacant, the building's been vacant there?
It's been a couple of years. COVID really knocked them down. I think it's been, what, 2 or 3 years?
According to Mr. Schofer back there, about 5 years.
About 5 years, okay, cool. Yeah, I know it's been a while.
It dates me.
No, that's not Hank. I was like, where's Hank?
No.
Neighbor, 2021.
Any other questions?
All right, thank you. Okay, commissioners. Oh, there's somebody online?
No, there's not. We just
Okay,
needed
I
to
keep
confirm.
forgetting about
I know,
mine.
that's okay. I'm like-
I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine.
All right, commissioners, guess we should discuss, unless we don't have anything to discuss. Are you guys that tired?
Well, yeah. All right. 2 things about signage and then I'm good. I understand staff's recommendation about following up with zoning. I don't think it makes any sense to put a sign on a building that says furniture if there's not a furniture store in the building. That seems kind of silly to me. And it's not there now. Like if we're talking about maintaining an existing sign, that would be one thing, but recreating something that is no longer relevant to the building's use seems.
History.
Yeah. And then regarding, I mean, I appreciate also the point about the painted chauffeur's furniture sign and how it would be interrupted by the new windows on that facade. But I find the fenestration pattern of this project to be very appropriate, and I think that it's important for that project to get the windows where they need them, and in this case would be more important than the maintenance of that painted sign, in my opinion.
I just want to comment on that. I think the intent of that comment was just, yes, the windows are going to go where they're going to go. I think the question is if the fenestration obviously is going to impact the legibility of the sign. We're not sure exactly how that fenestration is going to impact the sign. And it could be possible that the remnants of the sign may still exist and be a tangible still be there and be legible enough to give a sense of the history. It's also possible that where the windows are going to be, it's just going to make it look like a mess, and it may be better to paint it over. So that's sort of that question of like, we just don't know, either option may be possible, but we just don't know at this point what is exactly, yes.
Being down here behind the line of people. I agree with staff's comment on at least exploring the impacts of that. I would say if it's possible for the windows to not interrupt it, that would certainly be my preference, but it's not a deal breaker. But we have a lot of these kind of historic signs that I think it would be a shame to lose one if it's not really necessary. So that said, I don't have any other comment.
Just want to shout staff out about the detailed recommendations. Good job on that. And I'm happy to see that there is a collaboration between staff and the developer on meeting those recommendations. And last thing, just positive seeing, excited about seeing development or housing being created in neighborhoods that are in high demand as well. So, yep.
All right, are there any other questions, comments? Hearing none, do we accept staff recommendation as is, or do we need to make any modifications? Oh, okay,
I move that we accept staff's recommendation.
great.
Second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Any changes? Hearing none? Approved. Thank you, everyone.
We are adjourned.
The meeting
Don't
is
act, just
adjourned.
leave.